Good evening, Littleton, and welcome to the April 22nd, 2024 Select Board meeting. We will be entering into executive session for approximately the first 15 minutes, and we expected to come out of executive session around 6:30, 6:35. If I could have a motion, please.
Move the Select Board vote to enter into executive session number 2 pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Sections 21A2, to conduct strategy in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, police, fire, dispatch, and public work union. The Select Board will adjourn to executive session and will reconvene in open session after the executive session.
Second.
Moved by Mark, second by Matthew. Roll call vote. Mark?
Yes.
Chuck?
Chuck's aye.
Matthew?
Matthews, yes.
Karen?
Karen's yes.
And I'm at yes as well. We'll see you in about 15 minutes. All right. Good evening, everybody. All right, welcome back, Littleton. We are out of executive session. We'll begin our normal scheduled meeting. I would like to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody please stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, this evening, I will go through the mail. We have Select Board recognition tonight for our Park and Rec. John Kasanjian, who's here. Hi, guys. Select Board discussions. We're going to be awarding a contract, some sidewalk construction. We have some parking issues along Lake that we're going to discuss this evening. Initial discussion of Town Administrator's performance review. Approved veteran agent for Memorial Day Parade on May 27th. We want to vote to approve a vehicle use policy. And then we will look for member and public input. And then we'll get into annual town meeting updates regarding some of the articles, Nagog Hill specifically. So a lot of work's been going into that. And we will look over some of the other warrants. Vote to post the election warrant for May 11th, town election, and approve minutes from April 2nd, April 8th. So we'll kick things off with the mail, if you would.
Yes, sir.
And organization looks like.
Okay, we have, if anyone would like to sign up to receive public notifications for the town of Littleton, please go to www.littletonma.org/subscribe, and you can get community impacts, public safety activity, town meeting changes, town events, public health concerns, transportation issues. So stay informed. We have an email from notifying us of the robotics championship that was, the team went out to Houston, Texas last week to go and compete in that and give the students the experience that they have been working for so very, very long. And literally they faced over 600 teams from around the globe. So very, very impressive that Littleton Robotics entered that. Do we know the placement or anything?
I haven't heard from Katie.
I have not heard from Katie either, but it's quite exciting. It's very, very exciting, by the way, which is congratulations to them. We have the appointment from the Office of the Superintendent from Littleton Public Schools, from Kelly Clenchy, the Superintendent of Schools. At the March 28th School Committee voted unanimously to appoint Charlie Ellis, 16 Elizabeth Street in Littleton, as the district representative in the Neshoba Valley Technical High School School Committee, which is fantastic. Here we have a letter to the Littleton Board of Selectmen regarding the 2024 yearly operational plan and vegetation management plan for CSX Pan Am Railways, Inc. It's a notification that with the pesticide board regulations and the Mass General laws, they will commence with a post-emergent herbicide application program on or after May 1st, 2024, and conclude on or about October 30th, 2024. And applications of the herbicides will be performed by the following certified applicator: RWC Inc., Lockhouse Road, Turnpike Industrial Park, out in Westfield. Okay.
They just got to update their heading for us,
Yeah, that's right.
Littleton Select Board, that's all.
You're right. I didn't catch that. Thank you. I'm so sorry about that. I apologize. Current openings on boards, on the select board, appointed by the select board.
Got you all confused now.
Exactly. We have one position in the Clean Lakes Committee, one position Economic Development Committee, one position in the Permanent Municipal Building Committee, one in the Sustainability Committee, and 3 alternate citizen at large for the Transportation Advisory Council. And that is it for mail.
Great. All right, looks like first up is our recognition of John Kasanjian and PRC for Agency of the Year Award for Program Outreach. I know we wanted to do this last meeting, and John, I think you were out of town, is that, or you were somewhere?
Yeah.
But, so I guess, you want to come to the mic for us? I want to hear a little bit about what this consisted of and the outreach and what that.
Yeah, so specifically it was for the program Adult Recess, trying to get more adults involved. Our team sports were starting to fledge a little bit, started to fall off the wayside. We couldn't run our flag football league. Our softball league has less and less people participating, so us and the team at Park and Rec, we came up with the idea of Adult Recess, sign up individually instead. I got everybody reversible jerseys, I got some sponsorships, Dean Chiropractic, Tavern in the Square, Dirigible, and the sub shop in town. They helped pay for the shirts, so what we did was you just signed up for the whole time, kept it relatively affordable, $60 for 6 weeks, you got free childcare, trying to remove all the hurdles for parents and adults in town to be able to get out and recreate. I think we spend, as parents in town, we spend most of our time just schlepping our kids everywhere, and you got to take care of yourself. So the idea was to come up with a program that was, every week it was different. So it was kickball, dodgeball, softball, flag football, you name it. Seasonal. So we're going to have another one here in the summer coming up. But the point was to get more adults active and moving and a little bit of community-driven type things. And I actually was shocked because I thought it was going to be like the same people that did all the stuff that we do all our adult sports already. And it was a whole different crew of people. A lot of people I never met before. A lot of people that needed something to connect with the community and get involved with the town and just getting out to meet people and do something active and fun. So it's about 15 to 25 people each week. And we would go visit our sponsors after and sort of share our stories of triumphs and defeats, and it ended up being such a great program that that group has like created their own text thread. They get together now, so it's been a really amazing thing. So the Mass Parks and Recreation Association gave us the award for for program Agency of the Year for program outreach for this program, and specifically for the community-driven things that we created, and the program itself. A couple other departments have adopted this program as well, so it's really exciting to see it grow. So it's kind of like the nuts and bolts of it. I'm not sure.
Oh, great. Oh, that's.
We'll get another one coming this summer. It's going to be a lot of fun. So.
Good, fantastic. Any questions?
I love the energy that John brings to Park and Rec and to the town as a whole. I mean, just having sons that are the same age and friends, whether it's been supporting them on the sidelines or just the energy that John brings to whatever he's involved with is it's nice to see you getting rewarded for it, and we appreciate all that you do and all the Park and Rec does for our community.
Thank you. Yeah, it's
Thank you.
It's nice to for this that organization to acknowledge us, but as well as the town to see that we do great things, and our department we have a very small department. We offer more than most towns, and do a lot of good things, so.
It's a population that doesn't always have something that touches them, so I think it's fantastic. Thank you.
It's,
All right, anything else?
John, are signups open now for summer recess?
they are, you can sign up
Okay.
by the day, or you can sign up for the whole thing. It does come with, like I said, free childcare, so we have staff over at the club, and you can just drop your children off, fill out some paperwork, medical stuff, and so it's kind of like you have no excuses left. You gotta, so come on down, check it out. We got soccer, bubble soccer, where you get in the bubble and you play soccer. We got slip and slide kickball coming up. We're doing beach volleyball over in Westford on their beach volleyball court. So partnered with them to be part of that. They let us using it for free for the night. So can't remember everything else, but there's 6 different events for the summer, which it'll be seasonal. It'll be summer. There'll be a fall one again, winter and spring. Hopefully we can get all 4 seasons this year. We skipped spring. We were a little short-handed at the time, but so yeah,
Can they-
sign on up.
Can the select board do the slip and slide?
Yeah, come on down.
You can slip a disc. Thank you.
There's no like a age, this is adults.
Yeah, we had from
18 to
ages,
99.
early 20s to, we had a couple that came from Groton. They were in their 50s, and they were like just on like the late 50s. They were retired, looking for something. Hey, I'm 52. So,
Also, not 52.
awesome. Yeah, I'm not 52. But yeah, it's all ages, and like like I said, it was a really unexpected turnout of who came out to
Yeah.
play, and so it was a lot of fun. We picked teams right there, picked 2 captains, and we had the reversal
Yeah.
shirts. So they put on the shirts, and we give out like a championship trophy at the end of the night, depending on what it is. But it's a lot of fun.
I hope it grows because of the, this acknowledgement, and just, I mean, I didn't know that you guys did year-round stuff. I just, for
Yeah.
adults, so that's
Thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of good things that we do.
another place I can injure myself at.
I'm always like, people make fun of me because I say you just create a bunch of stuff for you to play, and it's kind of true. It's getting harder and harder to get up the next day and move. But
All right, yeah, citation.
Yeah.
Yep,
Sure. I'm gonna go to the chair.
I have it here too.
Okay, okay. You wanna read it?
I'll read it.
And I'll hand that to you.
And a certificate of recognition. The Littleton Select Board recognizes John Kasanjian. On behalf of the Select Board, congratulations on your 2024 Massachusetts Recreation and Parks Association Agency of the Year Award for Program Outreach for your adult recess program. So, thank you.
I don't know, if Mark, if you can zoom in on that, just to...
We'll see.
Mark's not here.
He's a-
Robot Mark?
We don't want mine there.
Here we go.
You want to get a picture with him?
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Come on around, we're gonna come around and get a picture. We'll go to the front.
No, you want to...
All right.
You want to see the inner workings back there.
The puppets, the puppet.
Equal strings. Thanks, Cassie.
Okay, everybody. Okay, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, all right.
Everybody, appreciate it.
Well, we need a crazy season.
I might trip during the meeting.
All right, good stuff. All right, next up, item 4A, vote to award a contract for $423,803.80 for sidewalk construction on Taylor Street to J.W. Harding Construction Company, Inc. of West Bridgewater, Massachusetts.
Hi, good evening. For the record, Stephen Yano, Director of Public Works. Here just to ask for the board's authorization for either the town administrator or myself to enter into contract with I.W. Harding Construction for some sidewalk work on Taylor Street. This is the sidewalk mostly funded by Amazon as part of their approvals from a few years ago. Took a little bit to get the Mass DOT permit because all that stretch of Taylor Street from the Route 2 on-ramps up over the 495 bridge is all state layout, so obviously we needed permits from Mass DOT, so we finally got those, got this out to bid. This will run out I guess I'll call it a donation from Amazon, and I'm covering the overage out of our roadway account.
Can you give me the from where to where? Just-
It's all around where the Amazon entrance is, and then heading up towards Foster Street.
Okay,
So ultimately, it will provide a connection into the Foster Street project.
Which is coming.
Out to bid currently.
And is it on both sides of the road, one side of the
Just
road?
the one side of the road,
The side that Amazon's on, or the?
the Amazon side of the road. yes.
And at one point, there was talk of putting a bike lane there. Is that still, that's separate from
Not
this?
Not as part of this project. This was
but the
sold-
Foster Street one.
Yep.
That's part, great, okay. All right, any questions? Nope. All right,
Actually,
Move-
yeah.
yeah.
Is there gonna be a crosswalk?
There will be a crosswalk up by Foster Street, but that's actually part of the Foster Street project. There's a few moving pieces here, but ultimately we'll all get connected.
Thanks.
Good question.
Move the select board vote to approve the awarding of a contract for $423,803.80 for sidewalk construction on Taylor Street to I.W. Harding Construction Company of West Bridgewater, Mass.
Second.
Moved by Mark, second by Matthew, all those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Steve, before you step away, can I ask you, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, please.
Just and we can do it offline, but just a Mass DOT question, when you're in conversation with them, if you know how to navigate, you might know somebody there, if you know how to navigate us painting the traffic control boxes, Cultural Council has tried to reach out to them and hasn't had any success. So I know a lot of communities around us have had them painted, but
So I feel like I went down this road like a year ago with them.
okay.
All the traffic signals in town are owned by Mass DOT. I think a lot of these other communities, they're municipally owned traffic lights. So it's a little much easier project.
Absolutely, yeah.
We even get bounced around a little bit at DOT,
Okay.
even though I know somebody there. She happens to work in construction, so nothing to do with
She has no juice.
what we're trying to get done. I can certainly dig up the people we contacted at
I
District
mean, I
Three.
don't want to put any more work on you. If you have some contacts, you want to throw them my way, I'm happy to make some phone calls and see
Yeah, we
if the board's
exchanged-
okay with that.
It was some emails, so I just have to go back and find them.
Okay. If you guys okay with me doing that?
Yeah.
Just On behalf of the
Yeah.
Cultural
All
Council?
good stuff,
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
thank you.
No worries.
And Jim, do you have the contract in front? It's-
No.
I think so the vote's just to
Authorize
authorize,
them, okay.
so it authorizes Steve or Jim to sign, so we're all set with that vote.
Have you seen the contract?
I have not.
Okay.
I've seen it.
Make sure Jim sees the contract, please. It's where, as we just voted for it.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you. All right, I think that's it for that. You're staying on for
Lakeview.
some stuff here, okay? 4B, review parking issues at Lakeview Drive and vote to add Lakeview Drive to the list of enforceable no parking streets.
So just a little background on this, the last couple of years, there's been some complaints. Now, let me just clarify from our previous discussion before the meeting. There's Lakeview Road from Meadowbrook over to Long Lake Road, not Lakeshore Drive or Long Lake Road or Lake Drive, there's a bunch of Lake Drives, roads over there.
I need to look at a map right before this meeting because I get the two confused as well.
So Lakeview is sort of outside the kind of realm of where Park and Rec controls parking with permit only. There's some other no parking signs through the neighborhood. What has gone on is people have sort of found their way to park along the road there after hours when the beach is closed, kind of overtake the neighborhood, if you will. It's kind of a thing, not just here in Littleton and other communities on these small local public beaches. People come in, just overwhelm staff or come in after hours. A lot of trash, a lot of, other things going on. So last fall, walking it with Park and Rec, as well as Chief Bernard and Deputy Chief Patterson, and then having additional follow-up discussions with the police. We come forward tonight with a recommendation for no parking on Lakeview Road. Again, with the hope to kind of, because if it's proximity to the beach, you, right there, you're across the boat ramp, you're on the beach. You know, it make it not so easy, and also gives the police an enforceable tool. If there's an issue, they can
Right.
ticket vehicles.
Could you bring that up?
Sure.
So the board, just so the board's clear. There we go. Okay, so we're looking at the beach. If you're looking at it from the water, it's the road to the right, when we're talking Lakeview.
Parallel. Yeah.
Parallel along the road there. Okay. All right.
So is this a general parking ban? It's a seasonal parking ban? It's a,
So, the thought was a general parking ban, can certainly be up for discussion when the beach is open, from, was the beach basically Memorial Day to Labor Day type of thing. You know, it could be a May 1 to September 15th or something. Internally, we had talked about general ban. It's a little more consistent with the parking thing, but where a lot of this down there is permit parking with Park and Rec, which is more seasonal, we could certainly make that work as well.
what are the bans on the other roads current? The other roads are seasonal or they're permanent?
So the ones that are controlled by Park and Rec, the sign is permit parking only. Typically on the one side, you'll see like when you drive down Town Road, which accesses the beach, there's spaces on one side signed permit parking only. And even along like Lake Shore and the corner of, I'm gonna get them all confused on, not beach, the next one over. There's striped spaces with permit parking only, and then no parking on the opposite side of the street.
No questions?
The only question I have, and Steve, you may not have the answer to this, is there are some half dozen residences there, and if they have company or something, something like that, I mean, it's
So
common sense, the police would just,
I don't wanna speak for the police,
yeah,
but typically in my experience, these are kind of, it's all or nothing. So the complaints that were received, Park and Rec received a lot of them, Administrator's Office received a couple in late last summer into the fall. It was from residents on the road. But again, in my experience, it's tough to police, car, whose is it theirs, they're down, it's kind of,
This is a June, July, August biggest issue.
Pretty much.
Right.
yeah. Yep.
but I'm sure if there's September, October, when there's nice days, or, prior to June, there's nice days, people are still gonna go down there.
Oh, absolutely.
Did the Long Lake Committee, is that what it's called? What's the Long Lake?
Long Lake Neighborhood
Neighborhood Association. Were they involved in this as well?
Not specifically in this.
Yeah, I was just curious if that,
Any input?
was there an input from them on this regard?
Probably a year ago or so, I
Oh,
went
okay.
to one of their meetings and discussed a variety of issues, which a lot of my memo covers all the other issues.
Yep.
But not specifically, I'm pretty sure they're aware
Yeah.
that this is coming.
Okay.
Or some way, shape, or
Iteration.
form of it.
Yeah.
I had heard from residents a while back that it's a problem, there's also a problem of cars idling for really extended stretches of time on the roads adjacent to the beach. People I talked to, the theory was that they're letting their kids go to the beach and then they're sitting in their air-conditioned cars, holding their meetings or whatever on the phone. Is it possible to put up some signage about not idling on the streets in the area where we do have parking allowed? I know we've got some up at the middle school, for example, where where there's pickup.
Yeah, those signs are typically readily available. I'd start probably in and around the parking lot.
Yeah.
If people are sitting in their car and watching their kids swim, which seems crazy. But yeah, we could certainly, but again, I don't want to get into throwing signs everywhere either, because
Nope.
you call it sign pollution, you get so many signs, nobody pays attention to any of them.
Yep.
But yeah, we can certainly,
Thinking maybe if we can add, right where it says permit parking only, put another one about, not idling.
okay. Yeah, we can look into that for sure.
Like, almost like a
Thank
rider on those signs.
Yeah,
We have idling laws, right? But
we do. Yeah, but
They don't.
the police, aren't good. don't have time to stand there
Right.
with a stopwatch and
Yeah.
see how long folks are doing it, but the sign might help.
Okay.
Won't hurt.
So we did see both memos. And any other questions regarding the memo?
So I guess with the, I know my memo touches on a lot of other stuff. I don't know, I know the motion is just kind of for the no parking. I don't know if you wanted me to just kind of blast through the rest of it real quick, just so you guys are on board,
Sure.
or at least know what's kind of going on. So, a lot of this, I know when we did the budget presentations and things, one of the goals was kind of running through a lot of the signage in town. And in review of some of that, just specifically in this neighborhood, is a number of stop signs, mainly on the roads coming out to Goldsmith Street that aren't on the approved stop sign list for whatever reason. So that was, I listed them out here kind of. So if they're not on the approved list, don't let the cat out of the bag, but they're not necessarily enforceable. So, something to consider. We need to, and again, kind of reviewing this all over town, there's a lot of signs that are up, missing, not just in this specific neighborhood, but all over town. And it's common in every town. Signs go up. You knew somebody 50 years ago to put a sign up, that type of thing. But in an effort to stay consistent with the manual on uniform traffic control devices, I kind of want to, and plus it gives us a tool. When somebody calls and says, there was a stop sign here, what I always say, it's not on the approved list, I'm not putting a sign up. They can come talk to you guys.
So it looks like every one of these is a road leaving the road turning out onto Goldsmith, is that
Yep,
right?
and it's kind of in like a short span. I don't know if it's from years ago when sidewalk was extended and intersections were reconstructed. The signs all went up as part of the project, and
Okay.
doesn't seem to be any documentation that it made that last step of approval from the board for all the signs.
Okay.
Because it's kind of like Shaker Lane down, halfway back to the center. So again, that's something for discussion. Also, in through the neighborhood, we had received complaints, myself, I think the administrator's office, as well as the police, about even deep in the neighborhood, stop signs, traffic control stuff. The manual is very specific on what you need for stop signs. Nothing down in the neighborhood would qualify for a stop sign. It's also very specific in the manual talking about you can't use stop signs for speed control or traffic calming. So you can't just throw a stop sign up to try to get people to slow down, basically.
That's odd.
Yeah.
But there's specifically 3 different criteria. If it doesn't meet like traffic volumes or accident history.
Yep.
And actually accident history is one of them. But then there's, some egregious like sightline thing, like you pull up and there's the building or something, so you
Yep.
can't see. So you realistically have to stop to be
Yep.
safe. Overwhelming accident history, 6 accidents in a
Sure.
12-month period. Mass, big accidents, not like just little, bumps type thing. But nothing through there really meets the need, in the neighborhood anyway. There's some other things potentially we can do, again, in reviewing with the police and seeing their complaints. Maybe we bring something forward, we can do different things with streets to try to get people to slow down. If there's a need, remember the speed limit was lowered to 25, where it would have been 30 through the neighborhood. Townwide speed limit's 25. Complaints are Amazon trucks, UPS trucks, things like that. Well, I don't know, go to the mall. I don't know what to tell you. They're in a hurry to go from this one to that one, but usually a lot of people think the bigger trucks are going a lot faster than they are. Again, in my history of doing stuff like this.
Right.
Some of the other concerns down around kind of Lakeshore Drive, Beach Drive, Jim and I were just talking about it. That's kind of the funnel point of pedestrians from the neighborhood coming down, crossing over to the beach. I know Park and Rec's going to be doing a lot of work on a accessible path across to the beach.
Like Turtle Pond.
Yeah, and then there's some work going on down around Frog Pond, but there's some concern with the way people drive around that corner, beach and Lakeshore. So a few different options we're considering at this point. Haven't really had a full discussion with police chief and deputy chief at this point, but I have 2 or 3 different ideas. Might meet with them as, season starts ramping up, maybe something we can get done over there early this season, but again, I want to walk that, meet with him first. Again, a few different options, either restricting access in the road, doing some bump outs, some better sign crosswalk. There's a few different things we can think about to try to make that a little bit of a safer access into, the beach, which we all know is very popular.
So can we get this on that particular Lake Shore? Can we get this on a future agenda? I mean, what's the, obviously, meeting with the chief, I guess fire even, to some extent, these corners, but
Yeah, depending on the direction we want to go,
This gets-
certainly fire would have to be involved because of access.
tight.
If they come down with, depending on what vehicle they're going to respond with, we got to make sure they can get there. So that, it's as simple as meeting with fire, showing some turning templates for the size of their vehicles to make sure that they can make it in and out of where they need to go in case of emergency.
is this something we can get done before the season? If there's going to be, I mean, maybe there isn't anything, but
Yep.
it sounds like there's something we can do.
Yeah, so I think the next meeting is, well, the next.
It's after town-
regular-
it's town
yeah,
meeting,
It's after
but-
town meeting, but still it's before the
Yeah.
official opening of the
Sure.
beach. So, yeah, I mean, we could, I can circle back with
Yeah,
Ryan. We can
right.
tentatively schedule that, and then I can get the chief involved, and we can certainly walk and come back with a couple different options.
Have we considered painting more crosswalks or even painting that corner a different color or something to make it more pedestrian friendly or things?
To me, I hate painting things every place, but I think we would probably define a crossing down there as well as do some maybe turn restriction type of thing. Like make the end of the road, you can't come out, you can only come in type of thing. Done that in the past in other communities, so want to go down, make some, take some measurements, make some marks, see what it'll do.
So some of the issues involve, if you're crossing the street, you're not walking onto a sidewalk.
Well, there
And
is
then-
kind
Or you're
of,
walking into
yeah.
parking spaces where a car is going to be. So those are the 2 issues also.
You could also do something temporary with, traffic horses and things like that, just to get a feel
Absolutely,
for
done
it.
that in the past too.
Okay, well,
Yep.
we'll get this on.
No, absolutely.
Good?
Thank you.
On the stop signs that you're talking about, and those are stop signs that are existing, that you just want on the approved list.
Yep.
There's potential that there's other places that don't have stop signs that we might want to add, that's what you're saying? Not in that
I'm sure
neighborhood.
there is.
Not in that neighborhood, but town-wide, we haven't done an inventory of where they are versus where they should be in
Correct.
that list.
So, just to touch on that, that's kind of a summer project, when I get some summer kids in, just start basically riding the roads, documenting all the signage. I mean, technically by the MUTCD, you're supposed to have a sign inventory, so might as well do one. But yeah, I'll get that, and then we'll see what's legal, not legal, misplaced, needs to be upgraded, that type of thing.
And in the memo, you said there are 2 signs in the Lake neighborhood. There seem to be 2 intersections. Of what I read from this is there shouldn't be signs there, but there are.
No, correct.
Okay,
And they're on the list approved back in the 80s, and I
okay.
couldn't tell you why.
You're not going to do anything about those?
Now they're on the list, there's no,
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks.
the no parking.
Going forward, do we need to, there was talk of whether the signs are under the select board control or just under, like, we have a parking policy that has all these signs in them, but the town clerk also has something that has all the signs in them, and I don't think the 2 are kept in sync with each other,
I
so.
think that's part of what Steve needs to look at to make sure that we're talking about, when we look at the bylaw, that where the stop signs are, is
I think it is.
important.
Well, there's 2 different, one is where the stop signs are, and then the other is who has the master list and where, who's
So
responsible for maintaining that list.
You would get this, you would go to the clerk to get the certified copy of all the approved signs.
Okay.
This board approves the sign and their location.
So you would do the inventory and basically submit it to the town clerk to hold the document.
Yeah, I'd compare the two at that time.
Okay, so it doesn't actually have to be in our policy because it's something we approve for her list.
Right, but again, I think what Steve is trying,
Yeah,
we're
yeah, I
trying to do with
understand,
the
I understand.
inventory, make sure everything jives, and
Yep.
that we, if there are things that are out there that aren't being accounted for, that should be accounted
So-
for, that we,
I think what you're saying is when you look these up, it's, the lists of signs and stuff are in the board's rules and regulations,
Yep.
if you will, but then they're also in the town code.
Yes,
Right.
so they should be in one place, not two.
They should be in the town code. They,
yeah, town code is where you want, where
Yeah,
it would
okay.
be, because
That's
that's the legal
typically where the
basis for
traffic
the
control
existence of
is.
the stop
Okay.
sign, yeah.
Right. Kind of going outside of public input, is there anyone here that's here to speak directly to this motion regarding Lakeview Road? No? Okay. All right, let's look for a motion for everybody's good.
Move the select board vote to add Lakeview Road to the list of enforceable no parking streets.
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Matthew. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Rob, did you, relative to this subject that we just talked about, I know that was a lot, did you need to speak?
Yeah.
Okay, please, come up now then. Oh, thank you.
Rob Rounds from 25 Juniper Road. So first I want to say I'm grateful to be a resident of Littleton, whether it's Park and Rec, whether it's Steve Youngley, DPW, whether it's met Jim, met many of you recently. So I appreciate that. Having said that, I'm certainly one who has been chatting with Steve for about 15 months with regard to some of the stop signs in the neighborhood that aren't authorized, where I listened to Steve's presentation in 2023 January to Long Lake Neighborhood Association, then started to engage him on matters after hearing a variety of residents. I then worked hundreds of hours along Beach Drive removing Japanese knotweed, in which I specifically, I don't know if you guys are familiar, if you want the map up, I know I've got 2 minutes. Beach Drive and Lakeshore, as was just described, my concern is that, and I think Steve is very well intended, but I also hear the regulations, and the regulations, I think, belie the real danger that I personally witness, that I've spoken with numerous residents. I can speak on one firsthand who claims there was an incident involving her daughter and herself with regard to a vehicle. There's obstruction with regard to visibility with regard to the traffic descending from Goldsmith to Beach Drive, whipping around the corner, similar coming from Emerson to Lakeshore and then moving up on Beach Drive. So a couple things, and didn't really know that this was going to be on the agenda, but thought because he's going to be here, you're here, I'm going to take 2 minutes. I'd say another group that you might want to consider beyond the police chief is the Conservation Commission, who has responsibility and owns the property of Frog Pond. That area, years ago when the bioretention basins were constructed, you guys are probably better experts, so I apologize for preaching to you about this. I don't think that level of vegetation had grown as it now does. I don't think it's been maintained. I think that there are significant visibility impairments that compromise pedestrian vehicle safety. So I think that while there are remedies with regard to signage, I think there could also be remedies considered with regard to removal of obstructions like trees and vegetation that leaf out. Right now, they're not
Right.
visibly there,
In a month, though.
but yeah, they're coming. So that would be another consideration. Just one closing aspect that I'll say is that Long Lake Neighborhood Association, this wasn't directly on the agenda, or else I probably would be joined by several other people, and we would probably have submitted something to you in advance for your consideration in advance of the
Well, I
topic.
think that, well, now you know we're going to have it on.
Oh,
so-
definitely.
Yeah, so this will work before, obviously, the summer.
Yeah,
So-
I'm not throwing any stones other than say,
Yeah.
I think there will be more
Yep.
involvement at the time of your agenda, that sort of thing. So I think those are the primary things, other than I appreciate aspects I heard earlier with regard to painting and that sort of stuff. And you guys are the experts, Steve's the expert, but walking the area, I'd be happy to meet with everyone and anyone
Okay.
with regard to observations that I think local residents routinely experience. And really think I think the select board, outside of Steve, who is following regulations and MUTC, if I understand that correctly, that I've since read since January last year, I think goes above and beyond that. I would hope that the select board has the authority, capacity, and interest, which I suspect you do, with regard to providing safe streets for pedestrian and vehicles. And I think in this instance, even if we come to the conclusion with regard to professionals saying it doesn't warrant from accidents or doesn't warrant with regard to volume of traffic, that just your awareness with regard to the activity of season, shoulder season, off-season, I think there's something worthwhile to consider. So
We'll get something done. Thank you.
thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. All right. All right, moving on to 4C, the initial discussion of town administrative performance review. So we're on a very limited timeline this year. Obviously, Jim started quite late in the year. So there was some discussion with Mark and I don't know if that was a public discussion we had regarding the issue with elections.
Yeah.
Because we just happened to walk into a performance review cycle, right?
Yeah, so,
When we got elected.
yeah, so, when Gary and I started on the board, we immediately went into reviewing the three positions that report to us with no basis for being able to do that review. So one of the things we talked about doing was pushing back the portions of the review so that it was happening before the election, so that the sitting board can do the personnel review. By portion, I mean the non-goal portion. I mean, there's the general performance and then how you completed your goals, right? And I think we should be doing the performance review generally as the sitting board rather than before the election for all the employees that report to us, because otherwise it gets hard to do the reviews and after the election, there's just general chaos.
Well, it's not really fair.
And it's not fair, yeah.
To the three positions that do directly report.
So my suggestion was we figure out how to expedite that portion of the reviews for, actually, we only have two really this year.
Right.
But we should figure out how to do them sooner rather than later.
So if I get something together, obviously with Jim and Matt, and then share it with the rest of the board over the next couple of weeks to look at, and that's what we would use. We did speak in our, our retreat. So we have the template of what and where we're at, and then that'll kind of carry us into the performance review cycle for June, July 1st, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
When they kick off, so, yeah, but I think we can definitely do this. I don't know if it has to be policy. I think it can be board-driven, where we try to stay ahead of this, so that when we have these positions, and all of a sudden it's performance review time after an election, and we've only got potentially, this year's an odd year because it's a one electorate, but usually there's two. We've got two new members potentially, so you've basically got three people doing the evaluation. That's not really fair to, Jim or Matt.
So are you proposing that you're gonna come back, what are you gonna do before?
Yeah, I want to.
Before May, or before the election?
Yeah, I don't know if we can do it before the election.
Right, so what were you
but
just proposing?
Yeah, I think going forward, because it really matters on a two-person year, but I think in general we want to do it on a one-person.
Every year.
Every year we want to do it. But this year, it's probably not going to happen, but I think we can have, at the very least, input from everybody on the evaluation. It might not be signed.
Okay.
Might not be anything, but we can at least have it. And then years going forward, we can start this process in April, where we're really looking at, the employee, and whether they met goals and where they're at, and we can score it. Everybody can score it.
So we should do goals right after the elections? right, for the year that's following that.
Yeah, I mean, you have time
And then-
there. The
and
goals
then-
we have time for because
Right,
that,
but then in April, we're gonna evaluate on the goals and evaluate on the
Yeah.
performance. So like, we should set the goals up right after the election, so we have most of the year
yeah,
to.
because we have a new board
Yeah.
potentially and they're going to have different goals.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, so, yeah, May and June.
Yeah.
So July 1st, we're hit the ground running. So, so on this particular one, I'll definitely sit down with Jim and get something together.
So I think, Jim and police chief can do their self-assessment portion.
Yep.
Send them
Yeah.
around to us. We can respond to the self-assessment either to you or Michelle or however we want to.
Yeah.
In a kind of get the aggregate of the self-assessment. The goal portion, I think, can wait longer, right? Because, at least this year anyway, I mean, if we wanted to say that the goals are due April 30th every year, right? That really hasn't been our policy in the
No.
past. I mean, we could be our policy going forward, but the goals section can wait longer because those are much more measurable. You can see what was accomplished. But how you do on your day-to-day things, it really requires more of the existing board, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
Michelle, this is, we do have the aggregate system set up, because we've used it in the past, and that seems to work pretty well. With town council? Okay. They collect the aggregate. And has everybody seen that work? With town administrator Ansaldi, I think was the first go with an aggregate.
with him, we did through town council, but I don't know, we can just do it through Michelle or someone else too, right? I don't
Yeah,
know.
we
if
can have that
matters.
discussion. You're right, as long as it's independent and they're basically taking all the scores from the select board,
Yeah.
creating the aggregate, and those are the scores, because now we have some positions, contract positions that are coming on paper performance, it's gonna become critical that we get these right.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Okay,
all right.
good.
Thank you. Next up, we have approval to Veterans Agent for Memorial Day Parade, May 27th. Mr. Borowski, good evening.
Good evening. Just want to make sure that you guys know what we're doing for Memorial Day as normal. Should be almost the same every year. Just a normal day, the Monday, the 27th of May this year. Starts at Donalds and ends up at the cemetery. About a 3-mile walk. Not bad.
Will you have something drawn up?
Pardon?
Between now and then, you'll have something drawn up?
Yeah, I mean, you got something already, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then,
Has that been
well,
put out?
there's a letter going out to a lot of the veterans that I have on the list.
Okay.
And I'll get it out on the cable and stuff like that
Awesome.
too, but, not much else we can do about that.
All right, let's vote.
Get as much as we can. We get some signs out if we can, but,
Yep.
Grand Marshal to be determined.
Yeah.
okay?
Will it be
If
Sunday?
anybody wants to make a speech,
Yeah, can you guarantee
and somebody,
All right, let's,
I've already, did 2 representatives, so let's see, I haven't heard back from them yet, but
Oh.
that doesn't mean anything.
Jim and
They're
Jim.
usually a little late getting back to me.
Legislators?
Great.
They're busy.
Yeah, they're usually out there though,
Yeah.
so be good. All right,
All set?
look for a motion.
Move the select board.
I'm sorry?
We're going to do a motion to
Okay.
approve the, that's all.
Move the select board vote to approve the Veterans Agent request for approval of the Memorial Day Parade to be held on Monday, May 27th, 2024.
Second.
Moved by Mark, second by Matthew, all those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect.
You can check to make
All
sure
right,
Monday
to go.
was the 27th.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Get your sneakers.
Thanks, Mark,
Thank you.
appreciate you that.
It's a 6-0 vote.
Okay.
6-0.
All right, we are on 4E, a vote to approve vehicle use policy. That was our HR director.
Good evening,
Good
Michelle Vibert, Human Resources Director. Before you, Human Resources is requesting a review of one of our many policies that we have. Select Board Member Rambacher has been asking to go through a lot of our policies, so this is the first of many that will be coming in front of you. The 3 requests for the vehicle use policy really deal with the naming. The first request is the naming. We are revising all mentions of the Board of Selectmen to Select Board. That's This policy is very old, so we're updating that. We're also requesting to amend section 10 under special circumstances to include or their designee after it states the governing body, the select board. We run into a lot of instances where it delays our hiring process in order to bring folks on board because we have to wait for a select board meeting 2 weeks out, and it just further delays getting folks in here. And the third request is to amend on attachment C, which is under the guidelines for acceptable drivers. So we actually have a rating system which the drivers, I pull their driving history and we rate their last 3 years of history. In order to be an approved driver, you have to fall under the rating of a 1 or a 2. And you can see in front of you that rating 3 does not allow you to become a town driver. We do have a lot of situations in which the driving history of the last 3 years, most of the time, the issues we run into are really the last little bit of that sentence under number 3, the marginal rating, is that it states right now currently 1 at-fault motor vehicle accident. We have, I mean, there's a lot more cars on the road. We're just talking about traffic and parking, and a lot more cars on the road, a lot more people, a lot more things going on, and we just feel it's unrealistic to assume that, you know, folks are not going to have more than 1 accident on their
Interesting, not at
record.
fault is on there. That's kind of, you get rear-ended.
Yeah, you get rear-ended
Yeah.
twice.
Twice,
It's not
hey,
your fault.
you're
Yeah.
done.
So, I mean, it's just, this is, again, a very old policy. We
Yeah.
want to maintain keeping the policy because it does give us a rating system to be able to
Well, certainly,
to
safety's number one, but I
approve
think,
or deny, but going with the safety, I don't feel that it's out of the realm to ask for 2 at-fault accidents in the last 3 years.
okay.
I was going to do it the other way and say, okay, do we look at the last 2 years or 1 year of history? But I'd like to keep the 3 years and just move it to
Sure.
2.
So you just said marginal, you have to be 1 or 2, but then what is probationary for? Because probationary only refers to marginal rating. So,
Anything excess of 2.
right, so if someone's in excess of 2, do they or do they not qualify?
So technically, they wouldn't qualify.
Okay.
And that's where we could go in front of the board or,
Exception to policy.
and
yeah.
ask for an exception to the policy if we felt it was not a safety concern, for whatever reason that would be. And that's where that changing of the language is. We'd now have to wait for another meeting. Can we go to the designee as the town administrator for that approval?
But what would probationary be? Who would be on probationary status is what I'm trying to figure out.
So if you were bringing somebody on board, they're all set to go, but you pulled their driving record and it showed they had 3 accidents in,
You also could have a current employee.
Yeah.
That if they got in a couple of accidents, and, you know, our policy right now, if they get in an accident during work in a town vehicle, you send them for a test immediately, a drug and alcohol test. So if that came back and it was negative, we could need a performance evaluation, not an evaluation, excuse me, but a performance plan. If there was maybe a verbal warning, then maybe the next time it's a written warning. There's a progression, right? And so maybe they're falling under the probationary status at that point.
Okay. Okay.
I'm curious why we have not at fault accidents in there at all.
It's a really good question.
Why is bad luck viewed as something that should keep people from working for us?
It's a really good question. So I have not had a chance to review the entire policy. I've been working with our insurance company to actually see if we can maybe either tweak the one we have right now even more so into items like that, such as you mentioned, or if we just, you know, come up with a new policy. They did just recently send me a template that I'll be looking at. So I'm trying to look at a comparison of what do we have. Is it best to just start with a clean policy or keep the one we have and work off that? But we do need some sort of rating policy, but I do agree that
I
it's
think you're not
very
at fault.
silly if you're not at fault.
50/50s are typically not at fault, so
Right.
that's the gray area that we'd have to decide whether it's a 50/50. I mean, but I guess so the real question is the insurance side.
Yep,
If they agree with any language changes here, we don't want to affect that policy.
Yep, so I brought this in front of the Personnel Advisory Committee last Thursday, and they did not have the new revised policy in front of them, but we just discussed briefly the changes we were looking for. And it was a really good question was brought up by one of the members. What happens to our insurance policy? Do we get charged more if we change our policy, our vehicle use policy? The answer is no, you don't get charged more. They do not delve into how we rate driving records. So they said move forward with how you want to revise it.
Does anybody have, I guess there's two questions. Anybody have an issue with this? And does anybody have an issue with, do we want to?
I'd like to actually go through this offline with Michelle before we actually vote it, because there's some things that aren't consistent in the policy. Like, the attachment A talks about fuel, but then attachment A here is different. And this right here, like, for example, what happens if you have one at-fault accident, right? Are you good, or are you marginal?
Yeah, so
I mean,
that,
there's these-
I noticed that actually.
There's some language just that needs to be
Yeah.
cleaned up, so.
That wasn't accounted for when I made the adjustment to the two, so one should fall somewhere.
Okay.
I also, in general, I have a question on these good and marginal. Does that mean I can have one accident and one traffic citation, or one, is it one of the two, or one of each, or?
To rate under number two?
Yeah.
It's or. You can only have one or the other.
Okay, you can't have both.
You cannot
fall
have
under
both.
marginal.
Because that's not the way I would read that.
Good, but under marginal, I
Yeah,
think
we're
that's
gonna,
confusing.
I think,
So,
yeah.
But if we remove the
it's just
at-fault,
the-
not at-fault language, then it gets a lot clearer.
yeah, so, I'll work with you to clean up the language.
Yeah,
and
we
then can
definitely don't
vote
want
it.
to have a lot of interpretation in here, especially on, if it's a safety issue. So.
Right.
So, yeah. So we can bring this in. There's not, do you have somebody right now that we need to?
Unfortunately, I did, but we do not any longer.
Okay.
So you are good to move.
Okay, so we can.
I have
delay
one-
this.
Yes.
I have one other, like, if we go back up earlier in the policy, like DPW trucks and things aren't listed in the police vehicles are listed, school vehicles, but DPW vehicles are not listed under the vehicles. Is that intentional?
I don't have the answer to that.
We also don't give the deputy fire chief a vehicle, but we give the deputy police chief a vehicle. Is that intentional?
Deputy Fire Chief
Yes,
has a
vehicle.
vehicle.
That's not what it says here.
Okay, so the policy needs a little bit of.
It says the vehicles say police deputy chief, but not fire deputy. So I'm just,
Yeah, I think your point, Mark, is, that you probably need to look at it, because there are
Okay.
some other gaps, and we're not in a rush anymore to do it, so maybe not the next meeting, which would be at town meeting, but maybe, the
May
next month or
11th or
so,
whatever,
yeah,
yeah.
right. Okay,
The
that makes sense.
The 24-hour emergency use vehicles are what you're referring to.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So as far as, if this policy, we get this locked in our next meeting, allowing Jim to exercise this policy is probably good enough. If he's following this policy, we should be able to delegate. Your issue is timeliness, correct? On
Yes.
some of these?
Yes.
So is that's something we can consider, I guess.
Yep.
Okay. All right, Michelle, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's jump into member updates. We could real quick. Let's put it down here. Karen, I'm gonna go reverse.
Let's let Matthew go first, because he can give the orchard updates, and
Oh.
I can say what he said.
I think actually I'll probably just talk about that because it's the next agenda item after all these updates.
Sure.
Is I'll just do the orchard, and apart from that, I don't have anything else to talk about.
Okay.
So the only other
So
thing.
go,
Yeah.
go.
The only other thing that I have would be that, I'm trying to pull it up here, the High School Environmental Club is hosting a Zero Waste Day coming up in May. And that'll be an opportunity for residents to bring all sorts of things to be disposed of, everything from mattresses to appliances. So keep your eye out for notices about that. I want to say May 8th.
Careful what they wish for in my house.
Yeah, that's it, May 18th, excuse
May
me.
18th.
10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Littleton Middle School. But yeah, lots of stuff that you can't normally get rid of on your, on the curb or,
Okay.
and it's for a very good cause, so. Good group of kids.
You know what, let's save you to last.
No, I'm gonna do this, I'm not gonna do any member updates until we go to the orchard item.
Oh, you're not doing it, okay.
Yeah, I'm all
Okay.
set.
Sure.
Sure. Since John was up there talking about the Memorial Day Parade, just a reminder that the VFW does put on a luncheon immediately following the parade, so everybody's invited to that. Again, immediately following the parade, back at the VFW on Taylor Street. Also wanted to, I'm not sure if everybody's aware of this, but Francis Daigle, our new health director, is working on the opioid settlement survey, and he's made some really good progress in that, so hats off to him, kudos to him, and I think it's something that's headed in the right direction, so.
Could you expand on, so is everybody aware of this opioid settlement?
Yeah.
Okay.
We talked
Never
about it
mind.
the last meeting.
Yeah,
I believe.
okay.
One
That's-
of the ones you were going for.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Also, Littleton Rotary's having their 20th Appleman this summer in July, and there's plenty of sponsorship opportunities, so anybody that's interested can contact their favorite Rotarian. And that's it. Just one of the questions I did have for John, but didn't know if you know who the parade marshal was, but in his note it did say to be determined for the Memorial Day Parade. I think that's it.
Great.
So last Thursday, I attended a webinar on inspiring climate action from the MMA. It was very informative, and I suggest watching the video of it. They talked about whether you needed a climate action plan or what it would take to write one, and basically they say recommend cribbing them now from other existing communities on a lot of that stuff. On Friday, I attended the Patriots Day kickoff.
Did you speak?
I did.
I didn't know. Okay, good. Because I was sitting there, I wasn't in town, I was in New Jersey, and I was worried because I didn't see anybody respond, but thank you for that. Because that was a,
Chuck and I were going back and forth on
Were you?
it, so.
Oh, good.
I was
Thank you,
hoping-
guys.
I was hoping to make it, but I got stuck down at Moderna
Okay.
in a clean room, so.
And I want everyone to know that the last Lyceum program for the season is this Friday at 7:30 at the high school. It's Los Sugar Kings, I believe. It's a reggae band, I believe, so.
Great.
It's great family fun at a really affordable price, so.
All right. Thank you. We attended the senior center groundbreaking. That was since our last meeting. So that was we had a beautiful day, so that was nice.
It's a good rain day.
Just since then, they've got a lot of work done out there. It's amazing what a lot of taxpayer dollars can do in the ground, so that was good. We also did a clickers test. I was one of the invitees. So remember, with town meeting, we're going to be using the clickers. Simple yes, no is on the clickers. I'm not going to plug it too much. We're going, before town meeting, we will get a quick demonstration. We will get a test vote while everybody's there on how to use them. I'm going to throw it out there a little bit. You can click yes 100 times and then no the last time, and it'll take the last thing you click before the vote is called.
It's closed.
So before the vote is closed by the moderator, and the moderator will let you know when the vote is closing. Each vote will be about 30 seconds. You'll have plenty of time.
Can we play the Jeopardy music while
We
it's...
could- I know, Mark will get creative with that, I'm sure. So we did test them. You know, there were a few bugs, and some great ideas came from the group that was in 103. As we tested it, just some pre-work that needs to be done just to make sure that the public is aware and what we do in circumstances. If someone walks out with it, it's a little different, that's all. When you go to the bathroom, you have to drop the clicker off. You can't leave the room with it, things like that. I think it's going to help make the town meeting efficient, but it is the first time, so hopefully it runs smoothly. Thank you for the Patriots Day, Mark, Liberty Square. Next year, it will be the big one. That's the anniversary, so we do have funding set aside for that, so more to come on that. It was National Public Safety Telecommunicator Dispatcher Week last week, so shout out to all of our telecommunicators and dispatchers. Town meeting report, I'll bring it up. I'm sure those of you that got the town meeting report, there was a misprint, and we apologize. You're going to hear a lot of this. May 7th, annual town meeting, Monday, May 7th. Our town meeting is actually Tuesday, May 7th. So we were so used to having these town meetings on Mondays. It's Tuesday, May 7th. We have put it out in a broadcast. We mentioned it earlier. I think maybe LCTV, we can just run it over and over again as well. So share with your friends that town meeting is on Tuesday, May 7th.
It's a leap year problem.
Yeah, that's right, misprint. And okay, that was it. Yeah, I think that's it. So, definitely it. Town administrator, do you have
I do.
the updates?
Thank you.
Then we'll
Just
get
to
into public.
expand a little bit on the clickers, one thing that the public should know is that when you have provided a clicker, there are no numbers attached, so it's not
Yes.
tracking votes of who's voting what. It's completely random, and you're just recorded as you have a clicker. There's nothing else identifying anybody. Through department head meeting today, a lot of great stuff going on. Some super employees here, I'll tell you. We get the year-end from the accountant, the year-end instruction memo that's going to go to the department heads for year-end with purchase orders, contracts, things of that nature. We had a follow-up. We received notice for a follow-up from our bond call. And let me just read just a couple of the excerpts from the correspondence we get. It's multiple pages, but they've confirmed our AAA bond rating again. It's outstanding. And also, the town produces consistently balanced operating results and well-embedded financial management policies and practices with a focus on long-term sustainability and a strong institutional framework. And the stable outlook reflects their expectation that the town will maintain its strong financial performance. So amongst a number of other compliments, but kudos to the select board, the finance committee, Ryan and the finance team and everybody of what an outstanding job everyone continues to do. We have we have so many great departments here. We want to let everyone know that this Saturday, the police department for the for the town of Littleton will be traveling to not all of them, just the chief and the deputy chief will be traveling to Texas for an award. It's an FBI leader program for the supervisors, which is it's an impressive award. It's very difficult to achieve that, but they've been able to achieve that. So kudos to the chief and his administration. DPW, some of the spring work they're doing is field preps. Get the sweepers out, and they're going to be fixing some of the snow damage that has been caused through the winter. And getting back to what Chuck had expressed about the opioid survey, it's been distributed to the Board of Health. The Select Board now has it, and then it'll go to department heads and finally out to the public. So after any suggestions that you may have with the content of that, please circle back and we'll and take that into the Board of Health, take it into consideration. There'll be hard copies around certain areas for this for the survey. It'll be a Board of Health website, school department portal, library. It's also on the town page, so good stuff there. Tree City USA. I need to find that memo. Excuse me. Okay.
We can come back to it.
Thank you.
You can wing it.
No, there's no winging. I tried that earlier.
We do have an award on the wall for Tree City USA, I believe, so.
So effective next Monday, there'll be a one-way into the new senior center. So this is maybe temporary, it's still up in the air, they're gonna be temporary or permanent, but the one-way as you're coming in, as the senior center is on your right and town hall is on your left-hand side. That's going to be one-way in effective next Monday, and there'll be signage put up for everybody, and everyone has to exit over towards Parks and Rec and into the building. And that will be, that'll be done. There've been some pretty close calls there recently, so it was decided. We have a bloodmobile that is going to be here on the 23rd from 9 to 3. There are 37 individuals that are registered for it. There's still some open slots. They like to see at least approximately 40, but they can handle more. Senior, the Council on Aging is doing a dinner and magic show at 4 p.m. and a pizza party hosted by LELWD at 11 a.m. on the 26th. The dinner and magic show will be on the 24th. Just a couple other things. Community One-Stop Grant. So we're going to continue on with the infrastructure with 550 King Street project. Also, we are going to Littleton Common Revitalization will be part of that. And we, as a result of my attending the Economic Development Chamber of Commerce meeting, I reconnected with a colleague that now is with Mass Development, and he is going to come down and see how they can invest some grant money here into the community, and going to work with Myron, and we're going to have a meeting to see whether we'll be eligible for some of their stuff. And finally, one of the things that part of that community one-stop grant is going to be Affordable Housing Trust. They are going for an aim on rehab grants to hopefully keep people in their homes. It's income eligible, low and moderate income individuals to help them, and it is, I believe, the terms still being worked out in terms of what it's deferred or, okay. And, but more news on that as that evolves. And last but, a couple more things. We have MART was awarded a Community Connections grant that includes the towns of Bolton, Boxborough, Littleton, and Stowe. And this is a ride service grant that can get people ages 8 and up to 20 miles from pickup locations in or into Littleton.
Wow.
So someone from Littleton works in someplace in Tewksbury. Well, it's $5, and it's got a fee structure like that. As early as 5:30 a.m., the schedule starts, and it's 5:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily, and the cost chart is 1 to 10 miles is $3, 11 to 15 miles is $4, 16 to 20 miles is $5. Did you have a question?
I was just going to say, I'd like to give some kudos to Ryan, because he worked on that grant. This was probably 3 years ago. I know that you and I worked on it, and you did the lion's share, let's be honest. But thank you very much for that, because here it is, and it's come to fruition, so thanks. Cool.
Are we going to have plenty of advertising about that on our website?
That's a good one.
Yeah. And it changed a little bit too, because.
Right.
Yeah.
The fixed route to the local shopping destinations wasn't widely used. There was, that's been eliminated. There was 2 people, I believe. That was a pretty low ridership. And so they thought that they would amend it and to try and get more creative and more interest out there.
This is point-to-point service for any resident, period?
Yes, you have to call ahead of time to the day before and schedule that. But what they're doing is they're contracting through the grant. MART is contracting with, it was expressed to me, it was taxi cab company, so I don't know whether there's a taxi cab company around. So I don't know if it's going to be Ubers, I don't know, but there is a number to call, and that person understands who they have to contract with.
I assume EHS is aware of this?
I'm sorry?
I assume EHS is aware of this?
This is all coming from them.
Good.
Yep, everything is coming from
It's like it's the ride in Boston, the MBTA. It's somewhat similar to that.
That's great.
Last thing, Parks and Rec, again. That was a wonderful thing for Kaz and for the team. And the Long Lake neighborhood had a cleanup last weekend, which produced a tremendous effort. and it was very impressive. They are going to continue, and that is with the help and the guidance from Tim in Parks and Rec. And it's also going to continue for next weekend. There is really that select woman Morrison had brought to the attention, which got the ball rolling for a hardscape path at the beach, and that is going to, quotes have come in for that, and they're waiting for a DEP number, clearance number, so they're potentially looking at second week in May for the construction of that path.
That's fast.
Just in time, right under the wire.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And they have a couple events coming. We have the Touch a Truck on May 4th. Apparently that was very well received last year, and that's going to be at 550 King Street. And then Third Thursday. The first one is in May, but then the one in June must be moved because of the carnival that the Rotary is hosting.
20th to 23rd of June.
Right, exactly. So it's not that Thursday. And we want to let everyone know is through the suggestion of Selectman Rombacher that to reach out to the Congresswoman's office and had first reached out to LELWD. So we're going to partner with a request for hopefully some relief on our infrastructure, but the LELWD also has some specific help that they'll be requesting for some federal funds. So we'll keep you all apprised on that. But it's LELWD is great to work with. They're fantastic. So.
Can Highway post their schedule of street sweeping so people know when they'll be in their neighborhood?
There is. That was one of the things we talked about. So there was in the main thoroughfares, the way Steve explained to me this morning was main thoroughfares, and then they'll get into the neighborhoods. And is there an order in which the neighborhoods you always do? And it's kind of a rotation thing that the neighborhood that was first last year is not going to be the neighborhood that was first this year. And they're able to do.
It's just if people want to clean up their yards in anticipation, it's nice to know before that you hear the street sweeper and go, I was like, oh, I want to get all the sand out of my driveway now. Too late.
Could we make sure that we have signs up on Monday, just in case folks show up for the
Town meeting.
Tuesday town meeting?
Yep, that's, yeah, we're going to talk about that when we get to that section.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Check it.
Yeah, I just, Jim, because when you brought up the bond rating, I was at a family event yesterday. It was held in a fine establishment on the West Roxbury Dead of Blind. But I was at the bar, and it struck up a conversation with a guy by the name of J.D. Wolfsberg, and he's a financial planner and a portfolio manager, and told him I was from Littleton. He said, "Oh, you guys have an awesome bond rating." He said, "I keep an eye on this." I'm like, who are you? That's what he does in his spare time. He looks at it and he said, he was really
In debt.
yeah, right. I mean, it's like pint of Guinness and a compliment.
Was it
pretty cool.
was it the Irish place right on the main thoroughfare there?
Oh,
It used to be called the Irish Ale House. It's called Waterford's now. Yeah, right on the Charles River on Bridge Street. Yeah.
Just sitting around drinking beer, looking through bond ratings.
Oh, there's a shower going on. I'm sure there's
I mean, I'm known for one thing.
That's a good
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I'll take
Today's
it.
day.
So I was, kudos to everybody involved.
Yeah.
that's
It's a
helped us
huge
to get
deal.
there.
It really
You
is.
guys have done an
especially-
amazing job. Outstanding job.
We know what our communities around us are dealing with, and we're dealing with the same, but just to be able to maintain that is quite impressive.
Huge. It's huge. Very impressive.
Quite a hobby.
All right, public.
Don McIver, 43 Foster Street. So my comments are regarding the Nagog Hill Orchard and the Warren article. Would you rather that I speak at the end of public input, just as you transition in?
I'll tell you what, I'll let you
Matt,
speak
give me-
Mr. Nordhaus gives his.
So why don't I give
Yeah,
a presentation during that period?
Sure.
Okay with you?
Works great, yeah.
Great.
He might answer some of the things you had too, so, perfect. Anyone else? All right. Sure, okay.
You're ready to pounce, man.
Boy, you're.
All right. It's a charged room
No
here.
pressure.
Okay, I guess that's up next. 6A, discussion regarding Article 11, declare Nagog Hill Orchard a surplus property, and authorize sale and potential vote to include a subcommittee of the Nagog Hill Orchard Ad Hoc Working Group in the prospective request for proposal process to identify a new owner for the Nagog Hill Orchard.
So, we, as a board, and the select board, approved the warrant article, which gives, at the town meeting, basically gives the select board, by approving this as, by declaring the orchard as surplus, gives the select board the right to pick a seller, pick a buyer and sell the orchard. And the Orchard Working Group also recommended the article and endorsed it. Subsequent to that, we had a meeting where I think there was a fair amount of concern in the public. A lot of people showed up, and I think that they are feeling disenfranchised and feeling like they are not comfortable with having a single vote at town meeting and allowing the process to move forward there without any more input from the public. And so we discussed it at our last Orchard Working Group meeting, and we went back and forth on several, proposals, and we came up with 3 primary things that we wanted to do. The first was to add 2 public at-large members to the Orchard Working Group. I believe the select board has the ultimate authority to appoint them, but we would respectfully request that this board, uses the recommendation of the Orchard Working Group as far as the membership of the 2 additional members.
Sure.
The second item was that we wanted, when Brad Mitchell and I spoke to MAPC about the RFP process, we talked to them about the possibility of them helping us draft it. And they weren't a good fit for that, but they did say that they offered help with public forums. So we would like to talk to the MAPC and try to organize, I would say, 2 public input sessions on discussing the criteria for the RFP, the criteria for the purchaser. Because after we discussed it at the working group, I think we all felt that the important thing for public input is to put up the guardrails when we write the RFP and be very succinct and concise about the criteria that we're looking for in a purchaser, because that's going to inform everything about how we proceed with evaluating and choosing the final purchaser. So we wanted to make sure that the public was involved, and we wanted to have MAPC facilitate those. So I was coming to this board to ask for permission to basically go to them and start that process.
Okay, so this is similar to, they'll have kind of the feel that the MBT property.
Exactly, that was exactly what we were thinking.
Yeah, that's a good way to have the public.
And then the third thing was that I think there was a sense that this decision was going to be made in a dark, smoky room and no one was going to know about it. So we want this board, and the working group is going to commit to an open public meeting with a joint vote on the final decision on the purchaser. And the working group, I think, is very concerned that this warrant article will fail because there will be objections to the process in terms of the lack of control from town. I don't think that this is actually a process problem. I think it's an optics problem. I think that this board and the working group is very open to making sure that the public has plenty of input. But there are a bunch of reasons why we don't want to go to a second vote. And one of the main, apart from it not necessarily being legal, which is one problem, that's I would say, relatively low risk, but a greater risk is if we make the purchase contingent upon a town meeting vote, a good quality applicant may choose not to go after it because they're going to have to do a lot of work to put the proposal together, and they're not necessarily going to want to go to that effort if they think that it's up in the air.
Yeah,
So those are my 3 asks. I'm sure that, I know that there are several other people here. I think everybody in the audience is here to talk about the orchard. So I will let Ms. Morrison speak, and then anyone from the audience who wants to speak. I think we should all have input on this before we discuss it as a board.
well, we'll discuss it as a board and then the public.
Okay, that's fine too. Or either way.
I want everybody to speak as well.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so just for some context, I was not available for the most recent meeting. I was available remotely for the meeting prior to that, where there was a lot of expression of concern about the wording of the warrant article. I would characterize the concern a little differently. There were a lot of people there. Ultimately, there was a vote about whether this idea of a final vote, or I would call it a veto, right, in a town meeting type situation was what people wanted, and that came out 50-50. So given the amount of vocalization there was against it, the final vote didn't necessarily, the optics were, that came out a lot differently than the amount of feedback that we heard against it. So I think...
Are these individuals that don't want a sale of the property, period? Are you getting a feel for that, or is it people that just, it's a trust?
It's a trust issue. It's a trust issue. I think it's I think it's also just a concern, an understandable concern by a lot of folks who live right nearby.
Sure.
That, this is something that's happening completely out of their control, and it's a big decision, and it's, concern, but, so.
Okay.
Open public meeting to make our choice about who would ultimately be granted I have concerns about whether procedurally that's something we can do.
I think it has to be in an open meeting, who you're actually picking, right?
Yes.
But the evaluation of,
Well, they have,
we're gonna, this is subject to public law, right? And we're gonna have criteria by which
well, the elected
we
body
are
has...
bound to judge these proposals, and so...
So that's why we're elected. So but you would have the public input at all these sessions, and as many as we need to do to get this right, but the forums, but at the end of the day... So
at the end of the day, we're
this
not
board-
doing a sealed bid? I guess is what I'm asking.
I don't know what I guess it's the question for you guys too, because so part of what Matthew was asking was, so there's 7 members right now on the ad hoc working group. You'd like to add 2 more members to that. So the question is, I think for both boards, is how do you want to structure the process for the request for proposals? Which is to say, typically, you have a subcommittee, and you could do a subcommittee of both groups if you wanted to do that, that has taken the input from the MAPC facilitated meetings, and then you've heard that input, and then you develop your criteria, and then assign the parties from this board and from presumably the ad hoc working group to participate in that and make a recommendation
to the
from that. It could be to both.
So we can have the subcommittee. That's where I'm getting a little confused.
Okay, so here's the way I thought it was going to go. So we're not really going to have sealed bids because the price isn't the determining factor. So we're going to...
Yeah, you'd have, so it's a 2-bid, so it's like a 2-envelope process, right? So the first thing would be that you would take the, if there's 3 bidders, they're giving you 2 envelopes. One that is giving you their response to the criteria.
Okay.
So, and then you're making an evaluation there. And then after that, you'd be opening up the price. But the primary basis for which you'd be making a decision would be on the criteria.
Okay.
So the technical proposal, so to
The
speak.
technical proposal, right. So the judgment is based on the technical proposal.
So my assumption
and
was...
then that's something that we can meet and discuss in a meeting.
So my assumption was that the working group would evaluate all of the submissions on their technical merits, let's say, and pick a subset of them, a handful of them, to bring to the larger group to discuss. And then that, in this case, it would be the working group and the select board that would vote on a final person, a final candidate.
Right, so then we get to Karen's question about, technically, how could you do this? So, it would be, my recommendation as the MCPPO person on this group would be to say that, to identify representatives of both groups who then are, by that point you'll have the criteria, you would have developed that already, and you assign, subgroup, from both, presumably both the select board and the ad hoc working group to represent you. Because the thing is, it's just, you also have to think about it from a practical side of things too, which is to say, like, if you have what would then be a 9-member board plus a 5-member board, it starts to get unwieldy. So, I mean, generally speaking, the reason why you put representatives there is that that way that discussion can take place, because, when you're talking about the merits of, you've tried to hire people, in public, and that gets a little awkward. It's saying, I like this one better because this, and then they're also going to presumably be presenting some elements that are also proprietary as well, which has some downside too. So, I think, there is not one way to do it, but my thought to you would be that both the select board and the Nagog Hill ad hoc working group would be identifying, a subcommittee to be reviewing the proposals based upon, again, the criteria you developed with the public's input and MAPC's facilitation, and go from there. That's and then you get two envelope process like we talked about. You're evaluating the criteria first and foremost, and then you're opening up the envelope on price. And so that you're basically, then at that point, you're making a recommendation from that based upon the criteria that you've established within the RFP.
And we would just bring one recommendation to the larger group to vote up or down.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Right.
So, having attended the last 2 working group meetings, I don't think the general public would be happy with that proposal. I like the 2 envelope process, but I think, first, I don't think you're going to be overwhelmed with our responses, that you really need to have a subcommittee to do this. If we are, that's a problem we can tackle once we have 20 RFPs and say that the...
So this is more, you're trying to get the more involvement of the public as opposed to just another committee?
Yeah, I think if you took, the RFPs and evaluated them in the back room and said, this is our favorite, the public's going to go bananas on this. They're not going to like that at all. Right. So I think you'd be much better off evaluating those RFPs in public, right? I don't expect that there's going to be that many of them. I also think the process needs to be slightly different than what Matthew suggested, and I think the working group should vote on their recommendation and present it to the select board, who then votes it as well. And we, as a select board, commit to following the recommendation of the group pending, unless we see something glaringly that we disagree with, right? That we, because the people on the working group weren't elected to do this. We were elected to do this.
I agree with that.
We should be the ones that have the final say on it, but we should strongly follow their recommendation. So
I think where I'm getting hung up is where the line between the private evaluation of the first envelopes and the public evaluation of those submissions comes. Because I think my intention on talking to you about this process was to make the process of evaluating the submissions more public. So I understand that there are issues with that and it's unwieldy, but I do think that that's the primary concern that everybody has expressed, which is that, again, we're going to bring one submission forward after a backroom smoky meeting, and that people aren't going to know why we chose that person or organization.
So I agree with that. So I think the working group should be doing in public all these RFPs with the first envelope. We can debate whether the working group should ever even open the second envelope, right? Or when the second envelope gets opened, but that's a much later process.
Okay.
In my opinion, you already picked the person based on the first envelope, and if it's, if the criteria is close enough, maybe then you go to the second envelope, but I'd question whether the working group even needs to see the second envelope.
Mark, the problem with that is that then what you're proposing, so you're saying 2 different things. First, you're saying it should be the select board's decision, but then you're saying that it should be the ad hoc working group.
No, what I'm saying is so the working group makes a recommendation, the select board votes their recommendation, Right.
But understand, though, that the real skin in the game when the board will have this is to when they're going to be prospectively looking at the criteria and make, if that's what you choose to do. Because what you're proposing to do then is just basically take that recommendation that has been vetted by another committee and then having that choice. If that's what the board chooses to do, that's your right. But if you now have 9 members who are going through on a 2-envelope process, that's a public meeting. Just as again, we could set up, again, in our earlier discussion about having two designees, you could have that as a public meeting too. I'm just saying that, just keep in mind that you're looking at this, this is a technical process where you're looking at it to say, okay, we've got 10 criteria, we're going to give 10 points for each criteria. So it does really sort of get into the weeds to some extent, but it's also, it's also, you have to be sensitive to the fact that someone else is out there, and if you're judging, say, let's say one of the criteria is fiscal capacity. It's a public meeting, it's going to be, it could hurt some feelings on that too. So, you always have to keep in mind with something like this that there's a party on the other side of this who is going to be looking at this. It's filmed and it's public, and I think that's the same point about why town meeting's a difficult party to do this, because
But this is a little different because the RFPs are all public documents.
That's right,
filed.
that's
So
right, yeah.
if there's something in that RFP that's financially sensitive, anyone can find it anyway.
But then, and then it also gets to what questions are asked for the criteria too. I mean, that may not, it may be valued less or
So
whatever.
I think we can walk the line of like making sure that that sensitive information isn't disclosed and still get the information that we need. But I would say the working group has 2 select board members on it. I think the working group is the perfect set of people to evaluate and bring a candidate to the select board for final decision. Honestly, it has all of the expertise, it has all the context, and it's the whole point of why we put it together.
I agree with that. My concern is the public input and making sure that after the vote and assuring the public that sometime between May 7th and when the select board signs, to a purchaser, that there's been enough public engagement. You're not going to please everybody.
No.
That's why we have an elected board, because we have to we have access to a lot more expertise with our finance team and everyone and our attorneys and everything else. So we have that part of it. But what we are going to depend on is that your working group for the recommendation. But at the same time, I don't know how many public meetings you can have outside of getting exact criteria, coming to consensus on criteria that you're looking at the RFPs. Because if you involve everybody in the RFP process, and now it sounds easy if you have two of them, 2 people, 2 groups that want to purchase. But if I'll play it out. If you have 7, now you've got potentially 100 people with input that are going to be all over the place.
No, that wasn't the idea. The idea is to give the public proactive input by helping the Orchard Committee craft the criteria themselves, not evaluate the criteria.
Okay.
So the idea is that you have much more sway over who eventually, wins this award by determining, by figuring out what the criteria are, by selecting the criteria than you are by selecting the person at the end of the criteria, right? Process.
And that's an objective process.
Right.
It's much more clear cut about whether or not someone meets a criteria. So I think it's actually a better place to have input.
Yeah, so the idea is that the public input comes in terms of letting the Orchard group know what their priorities are, what is important to them in a candidate, and then we can in turn, in the Orchard working group, translate that into, and put that into the RFP itself, so that those are the criteria, to the extent feasible, that the candidates are judged by.
So do you feel you have enough expertise on the board?
Oh, yeah.
Right now?
On the working group?
Because we can expand the board as much as we want.
On the working group?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we have a really good,
We have a nice
solid
mix.
Okay.
We have a really nice mix. My concern with the public evaluation of technical proposals is this is a legal process.
It is.
And before we committed to this, I would want to make sure that town council doesn't have any concerns about exposure to liability based on what that public weighing, what that technical proposal evaluation looks like in public.
So there's a difference, I guess, between having the RFP as a public document as opposed to having it aired on a public meeting and disparaging perhaps remarks said in.
And not even that, it doesn't even have to be disparaging. It can be as simple as, I don't know, in the world that I come from, right, protests can get really granular, and it can be like, well, you said that this was your top criteria and you didn't give enough weight to this top criteria when you were doing the trade-off between the top, the top two criteria. I would like to make sure that we are not bogging down the process to potential liability by having that technical evaluation in public.
I understand that risk, but I think that if we don't do that, the greater risk is that the warrant article doesn't pass.
I don't think that's a greater risk. I think getting sued over this process is just as risky, and we have to start all over again too.
So, and you're opening it up to the public. That sounds like it's agreed upon. Opening up to the public for the confines of what we want, the town wants in a buyer.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Right? So, and then after that's been reached and we put it out, the RFP comes back, the board's going to look over it with that criteria.
Yep.
Use that criteria to make a recommendation to this body. Correct.
And
right.
If town council, looks over this idea and says, go for it, I'm fine. I'm just raising it as a concern, and I want to make sure that concern is investigated before we, say this is how we're going to do it.
So this isn't all that different.
Or make promises.
This isn't all that different than the process that we used for picking Commodore at the senior center, right? I mean, if that was, you have all of the CM at risk that submit their bid, they came in and do a proposal, and then everyone that was on the committee sits there and fills out their matrix and scores them. And
was that in public, that process?
I don't remember if those are public. We did that for Commodore, we did that for the library, we did it for the senior center. I don't remember if those are public or not, but they
Typically not.
Okay, so what we just discussed, I think there would be something in town meeting now. Coming into town meeting, we are probably going to have a memorandum of agreement from this board to the Orchard Group defining that process, because then it's codified. Because if we just go into town meeting saying, yeah, we might hold a couple public forums, we said we were going to do it, that's not a good look either. So there would actually have to be a document that's stating we are going to do it this way. Because it doesn't say it in here.
Right. And I think that, that would be, ideally, if we had a document like that by town meeting, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
And whether or not we do the technical evaluation in public, I think sounds like the last thing that we need to decide. I think nobody's objecting to any of the other process that we've proposed here.
We just.
So, I think
we can draft something and run it by town council.
And we can ask the other question that you asked, Karen, which is to say, to kind of run through with town council what their perspective is. This all can be made public. We just have to be, somewhat careful, because, there is the legal risks that are associated with it, and we should ask that question beforehand. The one key thing that's being asked that the select board has to determine is that what you seem to be going toward is that the evaluation of the proposals would be entirely within the NAGOG ad hoc working group with all those members. So, which is fine. That's yours. That's your decision to make.
I'm not going to say I'm uncomfortable with it, because I know there's experts on that board. My comfort level, I get a lot of, and I think every member here, there's plenty of input from the public individually that come to me. So that necessarily might not come to those meetings. So I just don't know what that balance would be, to have that discussion where we at least get to see these.
Is there any reason why the rest of the select board can't look at the first envelopes for everything?
Nope, it would not be. No.
So personally, I think when the working group presents this to the select board, it would be nice to know that we had 20 proposals. These were our top 3, right? We picked you know, A because,
Here's the
A, B,
reasoning.
B because this, and B, C because of this. This is why we picked A.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Recognizing there's no perfect candidate, but we.
But we
maybe there is,
chose, you know, and it was unanimous, it was 7-2, whatever it was, right? You know, that type of thing. That, I'd much rather that than say, you come and say, we picked A.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
All right, let's open. Do you want to open it up?
Yeah, I was just gonna say in terms of the committee making this, you know, doing the evaluations, to Matthew's point, I don't see a whole lot of difference between this and the select board designating Matthew and me to be on the evaluation committee.
Yeah. Just as long as you have that criteria that in these public sessions that are the guiding principles behind what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, let's have,
And then they're all subject to open meeting law.
Yes,
yeah.
yep. Once again, Don McIver,
Thank you.
43
thank you for
Foster
being
Street.
patient.
And you've covered a lot of ground. I guess I certain prepared things going to say, but I think what Ryan describes to you is, as the two-bid process, is typically what this is. This is disposition of public property. It's the most advantageous, and isn't just a bid process. The trade-offs, the must-haves and nice-to-haves. And it's well described in the Uniform Procurement document. And it's very readable, and it's all in Chapter 8, a little bit of Chapter 5. I mentioned this at the Gog Hill Orchard Working Group, everyone's grown, but it's readable. It answers a lot of the questions you're having right now. You don't have to reinvent it. So also, just comment on what Matt had commented on, I think it is important having more people on the committee. You need more capacity, and I think you also need some more expertise, because a lot of things get suggested, sometimes don't jive with laws and so on. I think you do actually need some more expertise. And I guess, what you're describing, you've worked out, sort of makes sense that the committee looks at and evaluates things. And what has to be available is how you evaluated it. It has to be a public record. They don't necessarily have to see you do it, but they do have to understand it. And if they want to contest it, they can contest it. Also, it's a little more complicated than just selling off something. This is public land. It's public land paid for in part by the state. And I think also there's a law that comes into effect here, which is the Public Lands Preservation Act, which recently got passed, mostly so people in the water department don't do what they did when they did the water treatment plant. And Jamie Eldridge has proposed it for the last 20 years. Some of us have worked on it for 40 years. So the state's going to have some say, or want to have some say. What happens? They help subsidize it. They don't want people to get money to do stuff and then liquidate it. And so I think that's a real concern. And how that money gets spent, they're not going to probably allow you to do it for maintenance, because that's not allowed through the CPC Act. They're very specific on that.
Yep.
You can only use that if you buy something with the CPC money. So those were those quick comments. And so the comments I'm going to give here are no surprise. So the same comments I'm going to give Thursday night and at the working group listening session. That's the first listening session. Sure, probably had some starting in the beginning, and there is some state money for that, which I've mentioned before, but no one has taken up on it. I'll send information on this and that as well. So, I've attended the meetings consistently and participated when allowed. Don't question anyone's intent or motive. I think you're all trying to do good stuff, and I think you've made some good progress. But the thing that I've really come here to say is Article 11 is premature. You typically have your procurement officer or you designate someone, such as the select board, to make that decision. That happens towards the end. To vote on that, I think, lacks a lot of credibility. It's completely open. It's putting the cart before the horse. It's a bad process. I do program management, project management, federally, state, and muni, and that just doesn't make sense. And if town council has an issue with it, then you need a second opinion. So it's also a bad precedent for the future. Are you going to do other projects like that? Sell something blind, say, oh yeah, so-and-so's authorized to do it, but we're not going to tell you what it is. And what advantage does that really give you? I mean, it detracts from credibility. I don't think it's possible getting 2/3 votes by hand, certainly not by clickers. People want to know what they're getting. So the real question is, why don't you trust the town to approve it, or the neighborhood to approve it? You put something together, maybe it's by characteristics, maybe it's by criteria, but most towns have a set solution. You go through the process of doing a recommendation. Selectmen look at, probably okay unless there's some compelling reason not to. Then the people all have a say. The townspeople are the legislative body. They approve the financial aspect. And they have a say. When we bought that property, and I was involved in the beginning, I was involved with most of those properties that were acquired from 35 years ago, the town had to say about it. And I've given examples to some people what other towns do. Even for a 10-year lease for someone that's done agricultural stuff there previously, a well-documented and trusted group, some towns still has it go before the town to do a vote on it. You get complete credibility that way. If you do a good job and you come up with someone that meets the criteria that seems reasonable, then why wouldn't the town back it? I mean, some of the meetings have been at, people say, well, someone won't want hay here and there, they'll want some other type of agricultural property. You can't dictate that. No more when I was on the planning board and we did the point, we couldn't say you couldn't have a grocery store, you can't do this and that. You're not allowed to do that. People have rights in the development. I mean, there's certain things that won't happen. Marijuana is one. Piggeries are excluded as a nuisance. I think there may be one or two other things, but you can't really dictate what happens, what crop gets grown there. So, there are concerns about people in town won't like this and that. That isn't the valid criteria to decide something on.
Mr. McIver, I think this is probably best suited, for town meeting, because it's going to town meeting, right? So you're kind of talking about even, we're not pulling the article. It's been recommended already.
I know it's been recommended.
So this is definitely your opinion that would.
It's my opinion.
At town meeting would hold.
Well, Ed, you'll hear again, I mean, someone could challenge that vote, and that would be easy to do, but I don't think that's the right way to go. Impeding something I don't think makes sense. What I'm trying to do is convince you it's to your advantage to pull it and actually do all the work and have it ready. And, as you recall, at the working group meeting, people talking about maybe they need a special town meeting. There isn't enough time. I think you're trying to do too much right now. You should have a solution that people can look at and say, okay, does this make sense or does it not? So I think that's really my conclusion. I know you feel that it's been approved, but I think you get more credibility. I mean, do you want to go and have it fail and then come up again and try to get beyond that barrier?
Yeah, that's what we're up against.
I mean, it's very late date to
certainly
even having this discussion.
But I think there's a plan ahead that I think this body feels comfortable with. A lot of work is going. This isn't just the last 6 months. This is obviously a few years. So I think I know you have, but I think the process that was just set forth. And will be even codified a little bit more. I'm more comfortable with the public input that's going to be provided.
Well, if you do a MOU, put down a process, because right now there's no process.
Right. Yep, we will. Thank you.
Okay, and there's a recommended process in the document.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Please forward that to us. Please.
While we're waiting did you guys discuss at all potentially postponing this article for some of the reasons that Don outlined? And
we've gone back and we've discussed it a few times, but we ultimately feel as though the orchard is derelict and it's getting worse, and we have been trying to find someone to lease it for 3 years, and we feel like we're really up against it at this point.
Well, this board's up against
Well,
15 years of...
Well, that too, but also if we don't get it into this meeting, there's a greater likelihood we don't have anyone in next year for next year's growing season.
So, yeah, the agricultural calendar has a lot to do with it. The fact that it is a it's not just that we're not selling it, and, well, for other reasons, this is not what the prevailing wisdom should be, but the idea that we're going to make money off of this when we sell it, whatever. It's costing us money. This is a drain on our budget. Sure. And so every town meeting, every 6 months that we decide that we're going to put this off, we're agreeing to continue to foot that bill while it deteriorates and while the value for it, decreases. So it's the growing season has a lot to do with it. The fact that we have interested people waiting for this RFP to come out right now has a lot to do with it too. The longer we delay, the more likely we are to lose folks who in terms of their interest.
Thanks.
May miss an opportunity.
Yep.
Amy.
Amy Tarlow Lewis at 30 Omega Way, and I'm a member of the Orchard Committee. So I wanted to kind of concur with what Karen and Matt have been saying. We absolutely see the need to have public input into the RFP process, and I think people need to understand it's like the RFP that's going to drive the applicants, right? Like in the scoring criteria, will be, how many years of agriculture experience we'll have. It'll be like 0 to 5, 6 to 10, right? And we're going to be looking for people who have the most agricultural experience. Like will be a lot of criteria that won't be objective or opinion.
Subjective.
Yeah, subjective. It will just kind of be driving the answers and driving how we get there. I think a misconception that people have in the public about the RFP is most of the criteria, the primary criteria, is going to be about your agricultural experience, your farming experience, what diversity of your crop mixture, right? So it's going to be like, animals, trees, berries, bushes, diversified vegetables. Like you can't have a farm anymore that's just a monocrop. You need to have income coming out throughout the entire year. So we're going to be looking at what their farm plan is and how they're going to be utilizing the acreage as well. That's going to be driving a lot of the answers as well. And I recognize that, the community is looking for community input, but we have expertise on this committee. You have 3 people who are in farming. You have Will Pickard, who's the last dairy farm in town. You have Brad Mitchell, who ran Farm Bureau, is a farm lobbyist. And it travels all over the country and the world, working with farms and farmers. I have limited nonprofit farming experience. We have Sarah Seward, who wrote the grants to help us get this land in conservation. You have Jen Clancy, who's amazing at taking notes and networking. You have Sarah and Jen Clancy, who are already both abutters to the committee, right? Like you already have the expertise that you need. What we're looking for is community input, which we can have through additional meetings. In terms of adding additional people, I'm sort of, this on the same place that Karen is. It's going to become unwieldy. We have a lot of expertise. The only people I'd really want to see are people who add additional expertise. Like, I can think of like 2 people in town who could really add some value, and I'd really just rather see them as advising through the RFP process. This is also very unusual. I mean, when do we ever have an RFP process where the people in town are like, well, I need to have a seat on the committee? It's like, there's a project near my house and none of the people who live around it are happy about it, but we don't get to join planning board because we're unhappy about it. We just have to show up. So I think we also want to maintain the integrity of our processes in town. I think that's really important as well. And I also just want to make note of Don's comment. I mean, the process, so the piece of land that we're selling has an APR restriction, agricultural preservation restriction, which is through the Department of Agriculture. And their expectation is that we do an RFP process. We are in very close communication with them, and we are also following along with the process they want to see. And they want to see a productive farmer. They don't want to see that farm continue to fall into disrepair. The clock is ticking. They are watching us, and they are expecting to do something. And quite frankly, if at the end of the year we don't have a farmer, chances are they're going to take it back and they're going to plug in their own farmer, and then they'll have no say. And we've been doing this for 3 years. Like, we've worked really hard on it. We don't need to be putting things off. One of the attendees at our last meeting who lives around the orchard mentioned that there are kids playing in some of those sheds. One of them collapsed in a storm. Like, it's becoming a hazard. You know, and as it falls into more disrepair, farmers are going to be less and less interested because it's already going to cost them way over $1 million of investment to get it up and running, right?
Yeah.
Like, and we have a couple of really great candidates. Like, there's other pieces of land they can purchase. Like, this property has a lot of issues. Like, there are simpler places to go to get land, right? So, you know, like, there we go. I'm going to stop.
Thank you, Amy.
All right, thanks.
Show up at town meeting, please.
Holly Bayless, Pine Road. I was at the meeting a couple of weeks ago when there were the 50-50 vote. I was under the impression that this article was to see if we were going to vote to sell, but also about the lease. And I thought there was some kind of notion in here about a lease. Am I wrong?
I believe that this article gives the select board permission to sell. I believe that we don't need permission to lease it. We would be able to take that step on our own, I think.
Yeah, that was voted in a previous town meeting, so the select board has the authority to issue up to a 30-year lease.
Okay. So
There's
if-
nobody interested in leasing.
So if this gets voted no, then what happens?
We have to go back to the drawing board and find a way to do another round, I suppose.
See if we, I mean.
And so then if you're gonna go do another round, maybe you do it like this gentleman said, where you're doing the proposals first, whatever. But also, what you mentioned was that the state agriculture can just come in and place a farm?
Yeah.
After 2 years of it being fallow or unused.
And then is that farmer paying?
No, that they would, I don't know, no,
It's
they would.
basically a repo.
Yeah.
By the state?
Yep.
Even though we bought it?
Yep.
With their funds.
With some of their
with their
funds.
funds.
Well, some of their
Well,
funds.
it
Some of their
has to
funds.
do with their agricultural restriction. The agricultural restriction says that there will be actively farmed 3 out of 5 years or something like
The
that.
affirmative covenant to farm, just technically speaking.
And we're out of whack on that, so the clock is ticking. I think the concern is that if MDR sees us not making progress, as long as we're making progress, I think there's sort of the hope and belief that we're gonna be okay in terms of that, you know, repo action, for lack of a better term.
So
But if we get, you know, if we have to start all over again, I think, you know.
The risk
their-
goes
their
up.
risk goes up.
Yeah, so if they repossess it,
They get to install their own farmer,
It would still be owned by the town.
but
It
they,
would still be in agriculture, but we would have no control over who got it and what they did with the land, as long as it was in agriculture.
okay, and then the house would be separate?
The house is currently not part of the APR, so that is
It has to
separate.
be
yeah.
separate.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. All right. I mean, this is obviously,
Sorry, Amy.
oh,
do we
Amy,
wanna-
get some thumbs?
Yeah, I just kind of.
Second bite at the apple, so to speak.
Amy Tarlow-Lewis, 3 Omega Way. I'm a member of the committee. So just to help you understand a little bit the agricultural preservation restriction, the
Just through
entire.
the chair, just make sure it's through the
Oh,
chair.
sorry.
Yeah.
The
formality.
point of the APR is that, that because land is so expensive, particularly in New England, the purpose of the program is to provide access to land for farmers. And the expectation is that it will be actively farmed because we are losing farms every day, everywhere. And we're losing farmers because it's so hard to make any money. And it's so expensive to live in the state. So the state is, you know, very anxious to see a farmer who is already farming in the state stay in the state and have access to land that they can afford, because the price of the land is at the agricultural value, not a development value, not a residential value. So the point of the program is to provide benefits to farmers so we can grow food, so we can eat.
Yeah, thank you.
There you go.
All right. We knew this was going to be one of those very sensitive, so the more information we can have at town meeting, better for the board and members of the community that are very familiar with this process, please speak up so we can make the right decision.
Continue to speak.
As far as the lease and sale, I don't know if, all of this being said, if on the RFP could say lease or buy. Does that change?
The RFP's going to be.
It's got to be specific. We've done the lease thing before.
So if I may, kind of getting back to Matthew's,
Yep.
I've been taking notes on this, so it would seem we're talking about, our goal would be to have some sort of MOU or letter of agreement between the select board and the ad hoc working committee. So or prior to the May 7th annual town meeting, and then the things we talked about in that, the first thing that Matthew mentioned was adding 2 members to the ad hoc working group, so it would increase from 7 to 9.
2 public at large members.
We haven't really discussed that. I mean, I'm being talked down from that, it seems like.
Well, anyway, but you're right, that was one of the things.
Yeah, that's one thing. And then the next component would be having a public forum. You discussed potentially bringing an MAPC to moderate that session, similar to what we did with the MBTA communities, where we bring the community together to discuss the circumstances at the orchard and to discuss specifically what criteria would be reviewed and how that would be graded.
Exactly, that's exactly.
Yeah, maybe no less than 2. I don't know if you can do it in one session. I know that was, we were a little
We just
rushed.
said 2, I mean,
We can-
and we can keep that open, but I think
Yeah.
that we discussed that. And then as far as the development, for the RFP, it would be the responsibility of the now 9 members of the Nagog Hill Ad Hoc Working Group to review the proposals in a 2-envelope process that would be essentially going through and determining who the recommended party would be as to whom you would sell that to. So that you'd have that, you'd go through that exercise, come up with that party, and then ultimately that would be a recommendation to the select board to proceed forward as to the finals.
And that recommendation would be in public, and also we would present, the additional applicants who we thought were, honorable mentions, or why we chose the one we did, and what their strengths are.
And that gets to Mark's point, which is
To make sure
a little
that-
bit more in the presentation.
Yeah, to make sure that all of that-
We
A
just
summary of the
recommended.
process.
Yeah, all right,
Yeah.
right.
So this is a memorandum of agreement, it's really a memorandum of understanding, but it's also, we're charging the committee to do this.
Right.
So it's not something that we're just,
Which makes
Which
sense,
this
because
board
they
is
would be
saying.
the best qualified parties to be able to provide a review of that, and that makes sense.
but this is in direct response to obvious concerns of the public. We're trying to do as much engagement as we can while keeping the integrity of the process.
Right. And I think it's important to note that as it relates to this, that the select board, has this right. And so when you're, in doing this and trying to address the concerns of the public that we're hearing, which are very reasonable and understandable considering the circumstances, it's important to note that, the board does not need to do this. You could leave this within, your own, bailiwick if you were so inclined. But I think that what you're proposing makes probably more sense under the circumstances, and certainly reflects the 2 parties for whom you have representing the select board on the ad hoc working group. So this makes a good deal of sense.
So I think it's fair to debate the 2 extra members, if you all are on the fence about that. I felt like there are probably some residents who would bring a little bit more broad expertise to the group, from the conservation standpoint, for example. But I'm willing to debate that if it sounds
Well,
like.
it's what are you lacking and what are you asking for? You're asking for a citizen at large with X experience. What is
I think I had not articulated the specific experience as much as I believe that more public at large input from residents would be welcome from the people.
But that's coming from the public forum.
That is definitely coming from
So
the public forum.
that's why I asked you, do you have enough expertise on the board to do this?
Yeah.
And if you think you need 1 or 2, 2 members, keep it an odd number, then we go out and ask for that.
So there's 2 things. One is formulating the RFP that you still have to do. And then there's the formulating the evaluation criteria for the responders to the RFP. Those are the two things that you're really looking to do now. And the question is, do you have the expertise on the committee for both of those? Because you're not really, the criteria is a much harder one, I think, to come up with, personally.
Well, the public's helping with that, though, in the sessions. The public is helping with that in the
Well,
sessions. as well.
but like, just to Amy's point, she picked, a farmer with 1 to 5 or 6 to 10. Someone's coming up with all of these criteria, and who says 1 to 5 versus 1 to 3 versus, there's a bunch of criteria you have to come up with and say how those criteria rate, right? And
how they weight against each other.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that's something-
and the question is, to the committee is, do you have that expertise on the committee?
So we do have a consultant who is, on deck to help us craft that into, craft those priorities and help us figure out the right language to discuss weighing and trade-offs and that kind of thing.
And I think to your question, I think we do have the expertise to come up with the criteria, but I was trying to be more democratic about it and sort of inject more of the community values or resident values into the process and have it weighted more towards, what people are concerned about than necessarily the group that's there now.
Right, the group that's at the survey or it's going to be in the room, the public isn't going to necessarily say what Amy just mentioned, 1 to 5 years. That's something you can already have pre-programmed, templated. That's going to be a question that's asked. This is more of the other stuff that you're mentioning of what must have, whatever, a community engagement. Is it going to be an operational thing to the public where the public can...
Right.
Things like that. How important
yeah.
is that? So those things can be there, but it is the weighted part at the end of all of this that can get people into trouble. And that's why this committee, I think it's important that you guys are able to have the expertise to do that. It sounds like you do.
I think we do.
But okay.
And then if part of how we're proposing it is having other supplemental support via MAPC or through the purchasing process,
Whatever you
this
need.
makes, the approach
So
makes sense.
So maybe an advisory
So-
members.
I would say in terms of the 2 extra people, my thought is that if we, the select board as a body, are saying that the Orchard Working Group should take, full responsibility or the lead for developing the RFP and evaluating the technical proposals, then it makes sense for us to defer to the Orchard Working Group as to whether they want 2 additional people.
Well, that was I think the Orchard Working Group voted to ask us to expand to 9, didn't they? At your
Yes,
meeting?
and it was, I think, 6-1 voting for that expansion.
Okay, then it's been, so that's the
Or
recommendation
5-1
before
because you
us.
were absent.
I was absent.
It was 5-1, yeah.
So do we want a motion to expand that? Or do we want to hold off until after town meeting?
I think we've heard pretty good testimony from Amy, that says you kind of have a good body in place, and it's a working body, and adding 2 new people to, more dynamics, you may not be as productive with 9 people as you are with 7 people.
Do we have any
True,
more
but that
meetings
group
before
voted
town meeting?
to say, to expand it.
To recommend.
They recommended that we add 2.
We do have the meeting typically we do our meeting right before town meeting. We can, of course, have another meeting if
I think
necessary.
the working group has a meeting before.
We
that.
do, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just thinking, do you
Not
want to
the night of.
authorize us to work with the Orchard Working Group to draft that memo
Yeah.
on select board's behalf? If there are, if anybody has firm, deal breakers, like there's no way I'm going to support 2 more people, or there's, no way I'm going to support X or Y, let us know. But if, maybe we can just go ahead and work on drafting that memorandum together with the Orchard Working Group and making sure that they're behind it so that we can bring that to you.
We could also do a Zoom working group to discuss that one item, like whether we want to expand or not, but that could be a 10-minute.
Yeah, it's not, the idea definitely, and you guys have already discussed it, it's not to bring in someone, just another, we have voice from the public, we've got those set up.
Yeah.
It's someone, that expertise piece that just another person that might have a thought that you didn't think of, but they also can be in the public forum, so.
Yeah, as I recall from watching the meeting, the only specific expertise that I thought was mentioned was horticultural.
That is one, yeah, and I think,
And you mentioned conservation.
yeah.
That's out there.
But Sarah is,
Sarah's
eminently qualified
got
for
that,
some
yeah.
conservation.
All right, I think the question is, do you need to expand by 2 members?
So,
It sounded like you voted yes.
we voted yes, but now I'm like kind of thinking, well,
If you meet
It
a,
sounds like you guys take a lot of input and your decisions are based upon.
yeah, we voted yeah, and I proposed it, I think, and we voted yes. So, we voted yes 5-1. So I'm suggesting that we do expand.
So let me ask you this. Was that proposed, you proposed it, so did you propose that as like an olive branch?
I mean, I guess, you could say that. I mean, it definitely, all of this, I think, came out of that meeting where people were like, no, we don't want you making this decision
Right.
without us. And so there was a series of decisions to try to include more input from the public in order to keep that from being the problem.
I'm gonna recommend that we hold off on it and that let's see what happens at town meeting, first of all. Something might come to light where you said we can make this decision after town meeting on expanding this committee by members. If there's some expertise that we find out.
Yeah, if there is someone that
It's not
comes
gonna
forward
hurt
and says,
the
I can really
cause, it's
help
only
in
going
this
to help
way.
the cause,
Yeah.
right? So-
I guess the question would be whether or not you'd want, whether it be the MOU, MOA, whatever, do you want that in the,
That we would be able to expand, that the committee would be authorized to expand it to 9.
the select board would be
if
supportive
it-
of
Right,
that. Right.
with our support, if there was a need. Well, you know what, we need.
Well, they can't expand it to 9, we expand it. It's
Right.
already-
Right.
Right, we expand it to 9 and we vote them in.
So at the
Correct.
request of, so something like SB would commit to expanding up to 2 more members at the request of the Orchard Working Group?
Yeah.
Something.
Let's do that.
Like that?
I think that gives us the option and
So if
the lousy.
OWG wants it, we'll,
Yeah.
we'll do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. So I don't think we need a motion tonight because it sounds like we're going to do a memorandum. We're going to do a memorandum.
It's a lot. This will be a long discussion on town floor too.
Yeah.
so.
But
It's a big deal.
To
It's a
give
beautiful
Matthew
piece of
and
land.
Karen, the credit, a lot of credit on this, because what they're trying to do is to address some of the concerns that they're hearing, and they're trying to develop a process that reflects that. And I think the things that, the basic tenets that Matthew presented at the beginning of this really get us to that, so.
And the, and the map is great. The map is-
Because at the end, I think that the biggest thing that having been involved in this process as well, is this biggest issue of just trying to move things forward, because 6 more months of deterioration, and I think that's Amy's kind of point as well, it doesn't benefit anybody at that point. So
And
this-
it's a drain on frankly, it's going to be more and more of a drain on our finances. Like, we are deferring maintenance like crazy on that right
We'll just
now.
see.
Well,
what-
I mean,
And it's expensive.
We'll see what town meeting has.
Yeah, I mean, it is finance it, but it's also in terms of just the land itself too, and reinvigorating that. That's really what I think everybody wants to see in the
I don't
end,
think
and we have
anyone's
to
happy when
accept
they
that.
drive by the orchard right
No,
now.
and there's beautiful lots on that property that are going to end up with conservation and
Yeah,
everything's
so
broken up.
it's a great job
gonna
of
be
both of you for that. That's
a
good.
beautiful
So
piece
we'll
of
work
land.
on it. So is it that we're also saying that Matthew and Karen we can work, you're just signing them? Maybe we have that vote to work on an MOA or
Okay.
MOU?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, great.
All right.
You need a motion for that?
No, it's consensus.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a consensus, right? Yeah, that's
Please
fine.
vote.
Okay, great. Support you. All right, good.
All right, let's move on.
Thank you.
We're getting through this here.
Yeah,
6B,
a lot of
Yeah.
input.
review the annual town meeting warrant, discuss the annual town meeting schedule, and vote to assign articles. So
Ooh, that's a doozy.
this one we can zip right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
guys.
Thank you. Okay, so as we discussed, our next, meeting, Mr. Chairman, is going to be, typically we do a 6 o'clock meeting, typically it's a joint meeting with the FinCom, and we'll sort of go through everything where we stand right now, and really the primary request of this is to determine which select board member will be speaking to each of our 33 articles, and typically, we go through this and, assign folks from there. We did talk a little bit earlier about the error on the cover of the town meeting warrant. So just to let everybody know what we're planning on doing, we sent out the email blast on our website. We did post it to the website, posted to all of our social media accounts. We're going to also be posting it to LCTV. Again, highlighting, look, it's not Monday, it's Tuesday. We're going to be posting the town's electronic signboards. Treasurer's office and the town clerk are going to be putting up sandwich boards like we do for when we have taxes due. We have at least 2 events this week, larger senior events that are taking place. We're going to post it there, and Karen made a great suggestion about also putting something physically on at the middle school as well for Monday night, should anybody come and attend one day ahead of time. We also have the option for people who have opted in for our notification system.
Yeah, I already got it, actually. Someone sent out, I got a notification saying it was changed.
Oh, for which, well, you have the email notification, so they also have a separate, there's also a separate telephone notification that we can do.
I didn't get that, no.
So, no, we haven't done that, so there's typically, we would do that as a reminder, say, the Friday before the
Good idea.
Tuesday town
Yep.
meeting and doing that.
A red
So-
alert?
What's that?
What's the system?
Yeah,
red
so
alert?
it wouldn't go to everybody in town, it would be just for the people who have subscribed, so I think that list is around 400 or so.
I think it might be worth, I'd like to touch every single voter.
Yeah, and that's up to the board, and I guess that's really a question
That's what
for
it
you,
takes.
so.
I hate doing reverse 911s, but it's a mistake that we don't want someone to say, well, I wanted to go to town meeting to discuss article, whatever, and I.
Yep. Yeah, went the wrong day.
Fortunately, it's Tuesday, not Monday, so if they show up on Monday, they know it's Tuesday, but they may have moved stuff around their schedule and couldn't make it on Tuesday.
That's true. So that's another
I think
option.
whatever opportunity we can take, and I think it's probably too late to do something inside the light and water bills, but that goes to.
So is
we think every host.
It's not outside the scope of what that system's designed to do.
We decide what the scope is.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's probably that.
I think it's kind of, yeah.
I don't have I have no problem with that. We rarely use it.
Yeah.
And I think that this is.
Okay.
It's not just noise. We don't do it for every little thing, so.
Okay.
And the schools do it for when they treat.
Just make sure it's not
Playing
at
fields.
12, it's not 12:01 a.m. on a.
No. I think
3 a.m., we got to do it at 3 a.m.
The when is.
Yeah, the when's important, so I think, that, one of the times we talked about was maybe doing it Friday afternoon, late or early evening, 5:30 on a Friday
Yeah.
before. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts about what that might be.
Makes sense.
Yeah, Friday afternoon before.
But
Is
yeah,
that too
I
late?
haven't received mine, yeah, has anybody else gotten it?
Yeah. That's what mine was. Came in the.
I got mine on my desk, yeah.
so any other thoughts on timing for that, though?
I mean, what you're saying even earlier, because Friday, like you said, people might already figured out their daycare or other.
Okay,
maybe.
Yeah, I honestly,
I think
can't
next
tell you
Monday
when.
would be a good,
Next Monday?
yeah,
Monday?
A week prior.
a week prior.
Yeah, that gives people plenty of time. All right.
So say 5:30 at night, so,
I think so.
okay, all right.
What, can you schedule Gary's to go off at 1 a.m.?
Can you get into the system and
Little do you know my schedule.
Nancy set up a special alert just for you,
There
Gary.
you go.
I will be up.
So, okay, so thank you, that's helpful.
Let's go through these.
And again, we'll be meeting beforehand at 6, room to be determined. We've done it in the library before, probably doing it again. So, let's see. So if we can just go through this quick,
Yep.
we can do a drop-down menu and kind of go through. So, Article 1 is the annual report. No select board members that really needs to speak to this. Bills of prior years, so.
I mean, these are all, whenever these do come up, we instantly go to the finance director for these things.
Sure.
So I don't know, it's interesting, I mean, I guess.
It's really a question for you as members if you feel strongly about it. We don't have to put anything down. It is just that in past practice has been that certain members have said, I really want to speak to A
The
or B.
bills of prior years, I'm
You know,
very
yeah, no one really wants to speak to bills of prior years. It's,
I'll do 2 through 7.
Okay.
I mean, is anybody else dying to do 2 through 7?
No.
That's, okay. All right.
I'm out.
Okay, there you go.
You did there.
So then we get to Article 8, which is the Webster property.
I'll take it.
Okay, Mark. Okay, all right. Sorry for the, all right. Next one is transfer funds to the CPC budget. This is the fairly vanilla one where we're doing
I'll
the
take 9 and
pass-through.
10.
9 and 10, okay, Mark. All right.
Do I
Okay.
gotta be out now too?
I think one of you.
All right, NAGOG, so Karen or Matthew.
I'll take it. I was going to do the
Oh,
Okay.
the
This is a
presentation.
nod it thing, right? Put your hand finger in your nose.
Okay, let's see, fund the rehabilitation of 3236 King Street.
Put me on that if you want.
On rehabilitation.
No, I'm really out.
I think,
Oh, this
yeah,
is-
I think,
oh.
yeah, that's okay,
Indian
that's
Hill.
good.
I'm like, what are we?
MBTA, community zoning bylaw.
Planning, that's the planning board.
It is, but we did make,
You can put my
remember,
name on it.
both the FinCom and Select Board did make recommendations
Okay.
to it, so.
If you wanna, I'll take it, Gary, if you don't, but you can have it.
All right, okay, all right, so then we get into a few more financial ones down here, which is.
Gary.
Okay, Gary, you-
Yeah, these are usually
All the way down to
Consent.
18?
much of this might be, you know, might be
consensus. This will be,
consent.
these are gonna get
Sure.
consents.
Yeah.
consensus.
He's the FinCom guy. Plus, all these are going
All
to
the
be
way
on
down
the
to 20?
consent. This is
Gary?
all going to be on the consent calendar, I think.
Yeah, a lot of these are, a lot of these. So then, you know, we get through capital items, so,
I'm gonna have to study the night
So
before.
maybe down to 18, Gary, then, right?
he's through 18. The question is if he wants to go any further.
Well, he gets 22 as well.
LCTV, yeah.
Gary, what about I put you down through the compensation grid.
Yeah.
Okay, what about that?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
you can say you're out. Capital statement.
okay, and.
Capital items, you sure you want that one? That one often has debates on it.
Yeah, that's why I didn't jump at it. That's still open, right? 19, 20, 21 are open?
Yeah, okay, 24, I think it's just a contribution to the capital stabilization fund, fairly vanilla. Anyone on
Oh,
that?
you did take 19, 20, and 21?
He did, yeah,
He just
that's,
get happy with his clicker over there.
yeah, a little bit, I don't know.
If somebody else want, I mean, if
Yeah,
I
anyone else? I mean, yeah, you
I mean,
know,
as the chair, if nobody wants it, I kinda end up with it, so.
Yeah, but if somebody else is, I think somebody else should.
yeah, please. So we were looking at, so Gary's got MBTA zoning, and then we go to revolving funds, which should be that should be a consent agenda item. Prudent investor, we presume that would be consent as well.
I'm happy to take 13 if you don't want that one, Gary. If you want to stick with 13, I'll take 19 and 20 too. 19 and 20.
All right. I mean,
That's true.
you've attended a lot of those meetings, Mark, so that makes sense for 13. I watch them the next morning because it's good
Okay.
TV.
So 13, we're going to change
Mark.
that?
I'll take 13.
Okay, Mark.
I'll take 19 and 20,
Okay.
and then I'm definitely out.
All right, you two, let's go.
Okay.
Actually, senior center project.
I'm not taking that one.
No?
Well, that one's actually just a,
And so Mark on that, and Mark on this one, right?
So the
Okay.
senior center project, that was the one we're just doing the.
Yeah, we're just changing the language that expands so that I think we had money set aside for design, and that
Design and
expands us to
construction,
then
it
to
flows over to
construction and it
construction.
flows if we need it,
We've done
right?
that
It's
before.
very vanilla. Compensation grid, we stop there.
did I hear Karen say she
Yeah,
wanted 21?
I'll do the senior center project article.
Okay.
And then I'm out.
They're exhausted at this point.
Okay.
Can we get cap
These-
stab, 24?
These are just, contributions.
Yeah,
So capital stabilization, that's just our transfer in.
Transfer in,
Yep.
yeah, it should be a consent agenda
Let's
item.
put it up on there, on those
yeah, but put
ones.
my name on it though.
Okay, we'll put Karen's name on, there you go, Karen! We have a winner, there, okay.
I'll jump in 26, we're down there yet?
It's always funny, there's always.
Gary took Indian, who has Indian Hill?
Chuck does.
So he probably
Chuck, we'll
should have
put it back at
25
25, if you don't mind, Chuck?
I'd love it.
Yeah,
And
okay.
26, he's
Yeah, give
taking
me 26 as
26.
well.
Yeah, 26, we'll check with Chuck on that one. Okay.
Now I'm out.
Now, okay. So,
I know a lot of KMs or MNs down here.
we're getting close, guys. Let's see, use of debt exclusion stabilization fund for excluded debt. It should be pro forma, should be consent
I mean,
agenda.
put my name on it, I guess, at this point.
Okay.
I don't only have one other one, so I feel like I should take.
Yours is gonna take the longest.
This should be, 28 should be consent agenda item because it's like
Yeah.
$4,000, so anyone?
You'd be surprised.
Karen,
I'll take the big ticket, $4,000 item.
All right, there you go. Collective bargaining agreement, so we think that we'll have something here, hopefully, on this one. And then the recommendation is going to be, because we don't know specifically, we're going to wait up until the meeting.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. And let's see.
I'll take the Board of Health one.
Board of Health, the show.
don't put my name there.
Yeah,
I was
okay.
watching.
And then the rest of these are citizen petitions, which you did not make recommendations on, so you wouldn't speak to these anyway. So the only articles then that we're left with that we would be making recommendations at would be the FY24 operating budget transfers, if we give you any recommendations at that time. We're not necessarily seeing that at this point, but we may. Purchase of the Webster property, we'll probably be discussing that at the meeting, so we'll have more information at that time. The Article 10, which is the CPC budget, sort of ties directly to Article 8, so the two are sort of somewhat intertwined, and we'll have more information again on the 7th. And the last item, I believe, is the funding of the collective bargaining agreements, which we should be able to provide you. Basically, it would be a table with whatever whatever the funding would be to fund it for the FY25 for the respective unions that we have reached agreement on. So that is pretty much it. So that answers.
So we can post?
Well, yeah, it's already, everything's posted.
No, I mean,
Can that
next
get-
one, 6C.
Can that get sent to us too?
Sure, yep, absolutely.
That's one of
We'll
those
send-
things I forget.
Oh, yeah, no, we actually, if you remember, part of what we do is we'll also give you all your binders
Yep.
with all of the
Oh, that's
backup
right.
information as well, so, but the tables we can get out to you.
Do you need to get an answer from us whether we want it electronically or a binder right now? Because I know Lisa got on us.
So if you know, if you have a preference, I mean,
Electronic for me.
all right.
Yeah, I'll take it. So do we know if there's going to be a great deal of extra information in the binder versus what was in at town meeting last time? There was information that was in the binders that the residents didn't have access to, and it caused a great deal of confusion. So can we get access to the binder material on the website for the residents to look at?
We could do that.
And figure out a way.
Right. And understand too, part of that is also that there's a practical matter in that when you're managing a meeting like that, do you think you're going to be going through and looking at it and saying, okay, we're in Foster Street, are we going to be putting the sidewalk? So understand that, like, we thought that might be a consent agenda item.
I understand, but
But ultimately, that's where it came up. But I think putting the binder up, we certainly could do that. That's fine.
Mr. Chair, if I could, the last three items that we're going to vote on that night, can we get some sort of executive summary of those before we go in?
The citizens petitions?
No, the collective bargaining agreements.
Oh, the three we're going to recommend.
Yeah.
What do you?
Right before the meeting.
Yeah,
At our
I'd
meeting.
just like to have some sort of summary of the,
So
of it besides just the raw material, of, here's the collective bargaining agreements.
Oh, right. So probably would be something similar to what we do with our control sheets. We could, something like that.
Exactly.
using
We'll
that.
have a mini packet for the meeting.
Right, yeah, some sort of,
Right.
some Cliff's Notes for us to start on, and
Yeah,
then we
so
can
for
delve
the-
into what we need to.
Yeah, right. No,
need be,
that,
but-
so maybe, but taking that approach, then it's also part of the public document, so that the public would be able to see that and know what we're going to be talking about as well. So that makes sense.
Thank you.
All right, mini packet, got it, okay. Anything else?
to vote to post the election warrant on May 11th, 2024.
Okay, let's get out of this and save it, excuse me. We'll save that. And this is a request from the town clerk to post the election meeting warrant. We have it here for your signature. And this is the motion.
Move the select board vote to post the election warrant for the May 11th, 2024 town elections.
Second.
Moved by Mark, second by Matthew. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we have finally minutes from April 2nd and April 8th.
I have no
Discussion.
corrections. All good.
Any discussions for April? If not, we look for a motion to approve the minutes.
Move the select board approve the minutes of April 2nd, 2024 and April 8th, 2024.
Second.
Moved by Mark, second by Matthew. All those in favor?
Aye.
Karen? did you get that?
Sorry, aye.
All right, that's unanimous, and then we'll do a look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Next meeting's not until...
Next meeting
It'll
is
be,
town
it'll be
meeting.
just before town meeting, yeah.
Yep, so before we do a motion to adjourn, yes, so our next meeting, we hold is about a half hour before the actual town meeting.
Probably be an hour.
Maybe an
I think
hour,
just,
maybe an hour, you're
we
right.
want to make sure we have, I mean, unless, if that's a. if
Yeah, an
that's
hour
okay.
makes sense, that's what we did last
Right.
time, too. And it's usually joint with FinCom.
Yes, typically, that would be the plan.
And don't forget that it's Tuesday.
Tuesday.
We're going to say it over and over again.
Right. And that there's an orchard meeting coming up.
Yes, there's an
There's a
orchard
planning
meeting.
board meeting coming up to talk about the MBTA communities.
Two
And
big,
candidates night.
So,
And candidates night on Wednesday.
and candidates night is Wednesday.
all right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved
Who are you
by
gonna give it to? Who are you gonna give it to?
Matthew, seconded by Karen.
Yes. We
All those in
win.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good night, folks.